The Dent Slayer, Matt Boyette. Thank you so much for being here.
She's smooth, boy.
My wife woke me up at so this would have been maybe 2004, 2005. My kids were all super little and young. They're all full size now, bigger than me. But they were all super little. My wife wakes me up at 3 a.m. and she's like, Matt, there's somebody trying to get in the back door. And I'm like,
No way.
In a daze.
You don't believe it.
I'm in a daze. I'm
Yeah.
like, you're crazy. Go back to bed. And I'm serious. There's someone trying to get in the back door. And then I heard it. I heard the boom, 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 boom. Ooh. And I'm like, holy crap. And so I got up.
Heart rate goes.
Instant adrenaline rush.
Yep.
And I get up, and I pretty sure at the time I had a USP Tactical 45 H&K.
Heavy boy.
Big thing, threaded barrel. And I grabbed that, and the way my house was is I had a blind wall, and then behind that wall is my back door. And so I turned the lights on, and I walked around the little wall. Sure enough, there's a guy with his face on my glass back door.
No way.
Looking for a way out?
Looking for a way in.
Well, you had the USB 45. So
he didn't see it at that point. I had it and so I walk around, and he's like,
You're outside?
I'm inside.
Okay.
I'm inside my house. So I see, so this is good because I want to kind of allude on this later, but so I immediately identify he's an old man in kind of a small frame, and I have a door between us. And I have a gun, and I can see he doesn't, at least in his hands. So I can identify threat level is still high,
Midnight.
but somewhat manageable from my end, right? I had the high ground, Anakin or whatever. So I'm like, okay. And so I'm like, can I help you? And he's like, he was asking for some random name. There's Bob here. I need to see Bob. I'm like, dude, Bob doesn't live here. What are you talking about? Let me in right now. I need to see Bob. I'm like, dude, you're going to meet this guy if you keep, trying.
Yeah.
You need to get out of here right now. And he starts cussing me out, and he's like, and he turns around and just slowly walks away. And once I see some distance get between us, open the back door, and I follow him out, and I follow him out to the road, and I see him kind of meander down. But he was just a drunk guy in the wrong place at the wrong time. Trying to get in my house. Luckily, the door was locked, and he didn't get in because that probably would have ended way differently.
Yeah, that escalates things.
But at the point of this discussion what do you think about firearms? What is your comfortability with firearms? You have a immediate threat. Do you know how to handle that threat?
Yeah. Do you have the confidence and wherewithal, just with your weapon alone, but to stay calm in that situation, to process, okay, this guy, all right, he's an older guy, threat's a little bit lower. He's got no weapon in his hand, threat's a little bit lower. Let's start with talking as opposed to
Yes.
pulling triggers, And so was this it sounded like at the time you were definitely a gun owner, but did that kind of start your, we'll call it self-defense journey or weapons training journey, or?
I would say yes and no. That started. So this was one of my original guns that I bought in that same time. This Bushmaster here. I bought that probably 2004. Same time I bought that gun. So I started buying guns, but
That started as a Bushmaster?
yeah.
Boy, she's had a good life.
Yeah.
She's had some upgrades.
Yeah, she has. But that started my kind of gun collecting, and then when I traveled for doing hail, I traveled around. I didn't really collect that much because it's hard to have guns and going to all these different various states. And then if I do have these expensive guns, they're at home where I'm not there, and so I kind of paused the gun thing until I quit traveling. And then once I was back, I re-upped on my gun collecting. But yes, that made me also think it's not just about owning a gun, it's knowing how to use the gun. That's
very much so
bigger piece of the pie that I've found.
It might be the biggest piece.
The biggest piece. Yeah.
So today's guest, owner of Low Country Range Days, met Matt in September of 2024 at what was quite an extensive firearms training situation, it seemed like to me.
Yep.
Married with 2 kids, 20 years in the Coast Guard, so retired Coast Guard veteran. He plays guitar. He works out. That's about it. That's Donnie Walker is today's guest. Welcome to the show, Donnie.
Man,
Thanks for coming.
Thank you guys for having me. Really appreciate the opportunity to come and, just share some of my stories, have an opportunity to talk about, what I have done and what I'm doing now. I really appreciate that. And especially like you came out to Low Country the first year and you're just a really outgoing person. We had met at the Haley course and then you wanted to come up and do the event, but not just do the event, bring 2 friends with you. Yep. And also like, what can I do to help, just do this thing? What do you need? I've got these things. And like, we ended up using that 20-foot wide awning that you had to basically make our base camp the first year, which was extremely helpful. So I'm just really appreciative of one, the support of the event, and then like and here we are, like continued support. So
Sure.
With Low Country being a community event, this definitely embodies that. So thank you for having me.
Of course. So we want to get into who you are and your story. We want to talk about this stuff extensively. We want to talk about Low Country. Before we do that, we want to get to know who you are, a little bit about where you were raised, what you were like as a kid, and then how you're from there.
Yeah, man. Well, that's definitely a story, and some stories. Originally, I'm from Mobile, Alabama, which is a bit of a Coast Guard town itself. My dad was not from Mobile. He was actually in the Coast Guard as well. So that's how, my family came to live in that city. My parents were there, met, and then, at some point after that, I was born. But so I grew up in Mobile, and we're out there near the airport. So Coast Guard helicopters flying over my house as a kid was something that I knew. My grandfather was also a military guy, so it was part of my culture growing up.
A Coast Guard helicopter
Yeah,
is probably one of the most effective recruiting tools that the Coast Guard has. Why are they so cool?
I mean,
The color.
that's the
they are
orange,
cool looking.
It's hard to miss the orange. My daughter, she used to call it Nemo, because it just looks like the little orange fish. We had the dolphins in Savannah, so yeah, she used to call it Nemo whenever she would see it flying. But I would say it's just super effective. And our area of patrol, is going to be the beach. So you're hanging out with your family on the beach, and you're playing in the water, having fun on the surf, catching some sun, and here comes a low screamer of an orange blaze coming by. It gets the people going.
Yeah.
But and then I saw that as a kid, and then ended up doing that for a while into my adult life, which was quite a journey.
So were you a good student growing up? Did you like school? Were you good at school? Were you a problem causer?
So that's actually there was a period where I was a good student and I was a studious, and then there was a time period where I met those other kids and what they were doing was interesting, and I departed the scholarly ways.
About how old were you?
About 14, 15, right about just before getting into high school. And then I kind of tightened the screws when I got into high school. I'd always been an athlete growing up. I grew up playing soccer. And then when I got into high school, the local cross-country coach would come to the soccer fields and recruit runners because soccer kids could run for an hour and a half nonstop. So like that was a good starting point. And he always kind of like pitched it as a, hey, here's something for your son to do in the off season to keep him in shape for soccer. And so my dad bid on that. And then, so I played a lot of sports growing up. And then, at some point though, like you're having fun, you're growing up, and I think there was a point where I just started having too much fun and got a little bit sidetracked. And then the Coast Guard was joining up was one of those things where I was trying to catapult myself back into a stable life position and try to like, you know, reestablish myself. And it even took a couple trial runs of doing that. And there was even a part where, you know, I was sitting at some difficult tables while I was in the Coast Guard, and those guys were like, hey, if you want to keep your job, you're going to have to, you know, put away some childish things. And so, yeah, I guess that's another thing. Part of my story is that, let's see, on the 25th of this month, 2 weeks from now, I'll be 18 years sober.
Wow.
So I, you know, I got all my partying out when I was young, I suppose.
Was that most of the cause of your problems?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I noticed that, you know, whenever, you know, I was drinking and hanging out before, whatever goal or opportunity I had before me, you know, like, so I was a really good soccer player, but, you know, I would just miss being picked up by the Olympic development team. I was the county champion in cross country my freshman year. And, you know, and I was even a part of a state winning team later on, you know, but as my running career went on, I got less focused on it. That opportunity evaporated. Man, I was a cook in restaurants that I even finagled myself into let's say I moved to Memphis for a very short stint out of Mobile. And while I was there, though, I worked for the Peabody Hotel, which is a pretty established hotel in the Memphis area with 4-star restaurants. And I had an opportunity there, you know, like could have excelled. That opportunity evaporated. And then, so I was at...
You want to tell a story? You want to get into that?
Man, I mean, I'm sure we could get to like some stories that are good to tell. There's a lot of like, you know, there's the good, bad, and ugly, and a lot of it was pretty ugly.
Okay.
But you know, I mean, I definitely got myself to a spot where like, you know, I wasn't proud of who I was or what I was doing and the things that when I was not drinking, like I was a good person and I had the ability to do good things, but you know, there was always where I would stray, start partying or whatever, and those opportunities would evaporate, and you know, another, it's like a Jekyll and Hyde kind of situation. And so, you know, once I decided that was no longer going to be a part of my life, you know, amazing things started happening, and since then I've been able to accomplish some really, really amazing stuff and be able to help some people in really, really tough situations. What
happened? You said that once you decided that you were done with that, like what was it that happened that turned the tide?
There was a guy I worked for at the time. His name was Mike Mitchell. He was the chief warrant officer at the base there in Sitka. Really good guy, the kind of guy that you would want to be like when you grew up. You know, had 2 kids. They were, you know, this is my opinion, obviously, but like, you know, they had 2 kids. They went to church. The kids played in the church band. You know, they were just really good people. But he was also a very good leader. You know, he had a firm hand, a fair hand, and I just always really respected him. And so, let's say I was getting picked up from, we'll call it the jail, and Mike was giving me a ride back to base. And he let me kind of like tear into my story from the night before, and like, oh, you know, it was these people and that and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, and like, you know, no one understands and whatever, you know, excuses that were word vomiting out of my mouth at that time. And he finally like waited for a pause, and I finally was out of air and had to take a breath. And he just looked at me and said, you know, well, do you think you finally had enough? And man, you know, like that was it, you know, out of everything. And all the long list of missed opportunities and long list of things that, you know, like I didn't manage to do, or goals I couldn't complete. Like that was the final straw, I think, was like letting this dude down. And like, he had always had my back. And and for whatever it was, like that was it. And I started going to. I already knew where like the local AA cats hung out, so I knew where to go right away, and just started and haven't stopped since.
So it's mostly alcohol.
Yeah.
Not. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like before the Guard, there was definitely some party stuff going on, like high school, and like there was a year or so of music school in there too. So it's definitely some party favors, but I mean, by the time I was getting in the Coast Guard, I was trying to get away from that stuff. So, I was like, oh, I'll just drink twice as much, no big deal, and it was a big deal.
Yeah.
How was the process to get into the Coast Guard?
I was actually
What year was this?
Geez, so that would have been 2003. We actually like had to call like a friend of the family because getting in was kind of tight. So it was luckily that like I still had like some solid test scores and stuff like that from those studious days, like came to benefit. And so whenever I took like the ASVAB, like I scored off the charts, I scored well. I qualified for every job that, the ASVAB's not exactly like the most difficult test in the world. But at any rate, I scored well enough that, I was.
You qualified for any job.
Yep. And, and then we also knew someone on the inside. So, when we weren't really getting a whole lot of, we were getting a lot of lip service from the people at the building. We called like somebody on the inside. And yeah, so, you use your resources. And got in, went to boot camp, and shipped away like pretty much right away to that. And then once I came out of boot camp, I went to Sitka, Alaska.
So boot camp?
Where's boot camp at for Coast Guard?
Up in Cape May, New Jersey.
Wow.
So it was like the furthest north I'd ever been.
So I've heard that Coast Guard boot camp is pretty difficult compared to some of the other branches.
Yeah, I mean, I know that there's some things that we're not exposed to, but like when I went, I can say that like, they definitely wore the drill instructor hats, and you were getting it poked into the brim of your nose quite often, and there was definitely some reindeer games getting played. We were carrying around M1 Garands. They were like I think the barrels were filled with lead or whatever, but like they were extremely heavy, and like you carried one around and like you held that thing out in front of you, so you had some pretty strong shoulders by the end of. But yeah, you'd hold it out front, you do some push-ups, and they'd turn you into a sweaty mess on a regular basis. But I didn't really get fazed much by it because I knew when I joined I wanted to be a rescue swimmer. And that was the purpose of joining, which that's actually a pretty hilarious story. I was living in Memphis, and I think I had just lost that job at the Peabody and was hanging out at my apartment. And one of my lifelong friends was living up there, and he was like, "Hey, man, like you're not doing well in Mobile. Come up here. Let's see if we can't get you sorted out." And and I landed a solid job, and then it imploded or whatever. And at any rate, I was probably about 6 or 7 beers in and was just talking shit about how I was going to, change the game or whatever. Oh, you know what? I'll join the military, man. Like I'm going to do something great. And so like my buddy had finally just like had enough of it all. So the next day when I was like, trying to sober up and was sitting on my couch, like he came through the front door and like threw down the pamphlet of every single military branch from a recruiter's office and was like, "Put your money where your mouth is, homie." And me at the time, I think I was probably like $135, holding a wet towel. And I literally went through the Coast Guard pamphlet, and there was the job for the Coast Guard rescue swimmer, which is like not only just in the Coast Guard, but like in the military in general, was like one of the highest washout rates and one of the harder jobs to get. And like I didn't really have a long list of accomplishments at that time, and I was just like, I'm going to do that. That'll be the job for me. And I signed up with like full intention, and, and it took me, man, I got in 2003 and I came out of rescue swimmer school in 2007.
So you go to
It took me 4 years to get there.
rescue swimmer.
Yeah.
So what was your rate? Is that what they call it in the Coast Guard, your rate?
Yeah, so it is a rate. So that is the appropriate solid. So yeah, the rate is actually called AST, Aviation Survival Technician, and like your collateral duty is being the helicopter rescue swimmer, although that would be what we would all say is our primary duties, and everything else feels pretty collateral. But yeah, aviation.
So you're like a crewman on the helicopter.
Yep.
And then you're also responsible for
Yep.
saving somebody if when that comes, when
Yep.
that time comes.
Absolutely. Go down there, get those people, and bring them back.
So do you go through like the crewman school before you can go to the swimmer part of it? Is it all together?
No. When I went through, things have kind of changed a little bit since then. But like when I went through, like I was at the air station in Sitka. So like I basically was working in like the motor pool at the time, changing oil in government vehicles, rotating tires and stuff like that, like helping out. And then they're like, okay, your number's up. You get to go over to start training to be an AST now. And you're like, all right, cool. So you go over to the shop with those boys, and there's a shop of like 8 guys in Sitka, or I think it was 8 or 10 at the time. But and they basically, PT you, get you ready to go. So you play a lot of games with the guys in the shop. Like you come in the morning, your uniform squared away, pressed and dressed all the time. You're making the coffee in the morning. Every time you come in and out of the door, you're doing push-ups and pull-ups on the pull-up bar inside the shop. You're getting fit. You're going to the pool every day. You're working hard. And so you do that portion, and they called it the airman program. So like you were basically getting spooled up on like all things aviation. So you get indoctrinated on all the stuff of like, this is why we check tools in the morning, check tools in the afternoon. Like we're very squared away here, because if we don't make sure a wrench gets put back or a spool of wire gets put back where it's supposed to go, like someone could lose their life. Like it's a real deal.
Sure.
So you get all of that. So that would be some of like your airman, like school up. But then you go to school and it's all classes, all rescue scenario stuff, like, and it's all fitness based. Like there's a land portion of the day, there's a water portion of the day, and then there's the skills portions of like getting in. Like you actually have to put a panic survivor into the rescue strop and have them go up and in the simulated helicopter from the pool. And that's like, geez, when I was going through, it was like, somewhere in the 80%, I think it's like a 90% attrition rate now. But so we would start a class with
what are the hard parts that people can't get past?
This is going to sound stupid, but the water. But
are there certain tests that, is there a certain point that everyone is trying to get past and they can't do it?
It's really just like one would be like the master of your own body weight. So like no matter when you're asked to or how many you're asked to do, you could always do a push-up or a pull-up. Flutter kicks where you're like laying on your back and doing the fin kicks. Like, you could do those until the sun comes up. And then the other one would be what we call water confidence now, which is just basically like being able to go underwater and hold your breath and like feel that squeeze and have it really be chaotic and still, focus, do your steps and be calm in the face of chaos. And a lot of people have a hard time with that because at some point some people just will always choose the easy way out, which is to like let go of your survivor and like, save yourself. And
that's what your instincts are telling you.
Yep.
I need to breathe.
And so when people would ask,
sounds
like,
very hard.
Well, what's the difference between someone who makes it and someone who doesn't? It's like you just have to want it more than anything else. And at that time, like, I didn't have anywhere else to go. Like literally, like it sounds like I don't have anywhere else, but like I had pretty, as I've told my story so far, that there's at least 5, situations where like, oh, that would have been pretty cool. Like go to music school. Oh, that would have been pretty cool. Be a chef at a restaurant. Oh, that'd been pretty cool. And like, so like, it was time to finally do something. So like, So yeah, not only did I not have anywhere to go, like I had been around some really good dudes and seen guys do amazing things and make a difference and like, you know, be somebody. And like, and not only did I have nowhere else to go, like I wanted to be one of these guys. Like I had these like strong, you know, male examples to show the way. And like, and if you want to be a part of this and this culture and, you know, be a part of the brotherhood, this is where it happens. And so, you know, like we would always like make these jokes, you know, like, well, I'll wake up in the morning and like, I'm going to make breakfast and we'll get through morning PT, you know, and if I want to quit after that, I'll quit after that, but I'm not going to quit before morning PT. And then you get through morning PT and you be like, all right, well, we'll go to the morning pool session. And if we make it to the morning pool session, we could quit after that. And then you make it through that and you'd be like, all right, well, I mean, like, we're halfway through the day. So we might as well just hang out and see what the second half of the day looks like. So we'll go for the afternoon session. And if we're still not convinced, we'll quit it then, you know, then, well, you know, we're almost at the end of the day. Why quit now? You know, maybe we'll try tomorrow, you know, and like, so you just would just mind assault yourself like that every day. And then, yeah, so you crawl in your rack or, you know, you get through the day and you just try to pump as many calories in yourself as you could and then get back to it the next day. And, you know, and then.
So you joined in 03 and you didn't get done with training until 07?
Yeah. I want to say like my wife was wearing my sweater the other day. And I want to say it actually said 08. So it was like 08 was when we graduated. And so like, so I would have been in school in 07 because we were like the winter class. I remember standing outside for my final multi and like I was nose to nose with a pine tree and I was just like shaking like a leaf because it was like, it's Elizabeth City, North Carolina. And I was in a t-shirt and a pair of swim trunks and just like the wind was blowing and it was like 40 degrees outside and I was soaking wet. And I was literally as close to the pine tree as I am to this microphone. And like, there's lots of games to get played, you know? So like, as I'm like standing there shivering, like all of a sudden, like this voice comes out of nowhere and goes, "You stop that shivering right now." And I was like, "Oh, fuck." And it was one of the instructors and he's like, "Get back in there to the pool." And yeah, and then the beat down resumed. But geez.
So you were training that whole time?
Yeah. So yeah. Well,
wow.
So the 4 years, let's break it down. There was a period where I made it to the airman program and the dudes were like taking me under their wing. And let's just say, you know, like it's a hard thing to like stop drinking and sometimes you fall off the wagon. So let's say around year 2, I fell off the wagon and I had to start that process over again. And so like, you know, anything worth doing once is worth doing twice. So like, you know, I had to do the recovery road 2 different times. So that's why it took 4 years. Mm-hmm. But, you know, and like, it's funny, like I really don't make any bones about it now. 'Cause like, man, it was 18 years ago. It was so long. And like, there's so much stuff that, you know, it just, if you're a person and you struggle with that side of life, like, man, if you can manage to put it down, like it just gets like, it's hard at first, but then it just gets so much better. And then when you think you've gotten like, wow, this is pretty good, like it just gets better and then it just gets better. And, yeah, I mean, yeah, you were at Low Country. It was pretty awesome.
It was. Yeah. I'm glad to quit drinking.
Yeah. You know, sky's the limit, you know, but, man, swimmer school, that was, yeah, it's definitely like one of the big chapters. Like you finish that and like, you know, it's like king for a day. If you've ever been like, you know, like it kind of makes me think of like when I won the county champion, you know, in Mobile for cross country or when we won state, you know, like you're king for a day for sure. And then you go to your rescue swimmer shop and you realize that you're now like the lowest king on the totem pole and, yeah, you know, it all starts over again. And so that segues back to like, you know, so you go to school, you prove yourself, but you still haven't earned your wings. You're a rescue swimmer but you're not qualified. So you you leave out of there, you go to your unit, and then you're airframe specific whenever you're performing your duties. So like I came out of there and I actually went to Savannah, Georgia for my first unit. And the guys spooled me up there. I was a part of a really awesome shop of guys that brought me up in the ways of the old. And, I got a lot of harassment like from day one. And let's see, like I wasn't even really allowed to like hang out in the shop. So I would come in and like there's like a big table like this and the boys would all gather around in the morning and drink coffee and stuff and BS. And you were like, oh man, I'm part of the crew. And they would just like point to the door and they'd be like, get out of here and go get qualified and don't come back until you are. And so like you get your syllabus of like, so basically even though you're a rescue swimmer, you're hot shit, whatever, you have to be a professional aviator. So you have to learn every nut and bolt that's on that aircraft and know it from tip to butt. And like, so that, like if something happens on the dark and stormy, like you're an integral part of the crew and you can help, make decisions and solve problems should, something happen with the helicopter. So you get to your unit and like, oh, big whoop-de-doo, you just, I graduated rescue swimmer school. I thought that was like the peak of it all. But you start learning your airframe, you get qualified, and then you start flying, you start going on missions, you start doing on rescues, and it goes.
Were you stationed at like a land base, or were you ever on a boat?
I didn't do any time on a boat. There were a couple of times where I put in for like deployments where like swimmers would get put on cutters, and I never got lucky. There was a time where I'm always up for adventure. We'll probably get to some of that in my story, I guess. Like I'm always up to do something wild and like get weird in life. And so like there would be like these times where they would call up and they would say like, hey, they need a guy to go on an icebreaker and go to the South Pole, and I'd be like, I'll go. But I never got picked, and I was kind of always bummed about that. But I did. Let's see. I was stationed in Savannah, and I stayed there.
Hunter Army Airfield.
Yep, 100%. Just down from the 175 Ranger Regiment, and next door to the 160th SOAR unit. So it was cool to be there. And in Savannah, there's a solid military culture there. It was a good place to grow up, so to speak. Hunter Army Airfield for the first tour, and I actually short toured out of there because the Coast Guard was looking for guys to stand up the first Dunker facility. The Coast Guard, so part of your aircrew requirements are to go and they basically put you in a dummy helicopter fuselage and turn you upside down and dunk you in a swimming pool, and you have to be able to get yourself out. And that's also one of the things that ASTs teach every year. So you're a survival instructor to the crew. So every year we maintain the crew's requirements for egress and survival. So we'll teach like water and land survival skills and all that kind of stuff to the crew. So it's one of our other collaterals. And then, so let's see. While I'm there, they're asking for dudes to go to dive school. So I got the opportunity to go to Navy dive school on my third-ish year. And so I short toured out of there, and I got a little bit of a stint down in Panama City Beach, Florida at the Navy schoolhouse. I was there for 6 months. So I got the whole like naval second-class dive certification, like the whole like hard hat, cutting and welding,
Whoa.
Deep sea diver. So, and I'm one of the few guys in the Coast Guard that ever have those two qualifications. And it was one of those things too, even when I was in boot camp, I was asking my company commander, he was this QMC. We don't even have quartermasters anymore, but QMC Miller. And I was like, hey, is there ever a time where like a guy could be like a rescue swimmer and a diver? And he was like, doesn't exist. And I was like, well, that sucks. I'll still be a swimmer. That'll be cool. And then, so there I was like seeing these emails pop up, and they were like, we're soliciting. And I think I was only on E4 at the time. And they were only opening up to E5s. And then finally, like, no one was really rogering up for it. Later on, I realized that like there was reasons for that. And I was like, 6 months in Navy dive school was a bit of a, I don't want to say it was awakening, but like I was older. Man, this would have been 2011. I don't know. I was like 30 something. You know, like I had some, some seasoning. I was a little salt and peppery at that time. And you're in. Originally, the Coast Guard would go with the Army, and the Army is like a gentleman's class. It's like a C school. So like you're a bona fide person in your service, and you get treated like a respectable adult, and you get educated on the processes of what we're trying to teach you.
No yelling, not like a boot camp thing.
Correct. The Navy is an A school, and A stands for. This is a PG show, right?
Yeah.
So you get treated like an a-hole. I got a very unique dive school experience. We go in, and the first like couple days we're there with the Army, and the hardest couple of days in the Army is like they take you to the pool and they bind your feet and your hands, and they throw you all in the deep of the pool, and you have to, it's like sharks and daisies or whatever, and like you have to tread water, and like it is absolute chaos. And you're like, well, this sucks. And like this, it's like they basically try to get people who don't have water confidence to quit on day one, so they don't have to waste their time with them. And you definitely get a couple folks to like wash out. So we did that day, and then the very next day they roll in and they're like, hey guys, unique opportunity for you. We've been trying to get back over with the Navy for some time now, and you guys are lucky number ones. So day 2, they rolled us into the Navy school, and it's a Class A school. So like those kids, they're children. They're like 19 and 20, like all made out of rubber and just spry with life. And we get moved over to their class, and we were in one classroom, and the vibe was way different in there. We had snacks, and everyone's like drinking coffee and like, hey, how you doing? Oh, breakfast was good, like chit chatting. And then like you came over in the next room, and man, like everyone's like sitting in their chairs with their hands on their thighs, like in the appropriate position, and like no one's talking, everyone's barely breathing. It's very still, and you're like, I have severely messed up here. I am in a bad place. And about that time, man, the clack on the door bust open, and like the instructors come flying in, and they're like, part the sea. And I'm not exactly sure what this means, but I'm pretty sure I know what's about to happen. And like all the Navy cats like grab all the desks and all the chairs and slam them against the wall, and basically like make like a PT path in the middle of this classroom. And we all start getting real sweaty inside of our uniforms real quick. And 6 months with those dudes. That was super awesome. If you ever want to like remain young at life, you just go to like a military school, like your early 30s, and like hang out with a bunch of 20-year-olds. Either you come out really immature, or you're just you're young at heart again.
Yeah.
But.
So if you're in the Coast Guard for 20 years, like what were some of the big highlights of your service?
For me, it's definitely rescues.
Going along that, one of the questions I asked some of my friends earlier, what's one of the craziest situations you were involved in?
Plane crash. This was when I was stationed in Hawaii. Barbers Point, and man, I forget. It was right when I got there, so I think it would have been like 18 or something like that. It all starts to kind of run together, but I was on duty, and it was an interesting day. Like there was actually you come on and you're there in the morning, and the beginning of the day started off with a call. There was that's right. It's okay. It's all coming back to me. So there it was. They're like, hey, there's a plane that's going down, and, we're going to go launch on this. It's a possible plane crash. And we're like, okay, well, that's not standard, but tell us more. And so we're all getting spooled up. We're kind of getting the brief on it. And they're saying, hey, actually, we're going to stand down. But it was a small plane that the guy was doing a ferry flight. I think he was flying it from California out to Hawaii and misjudged on how much fuel he needed, and he was running out of gas. And like this was literally like, I guess he had like jerry cans of gas like in the back of the plane and was like, placing the hose into these cans.
Wow.
And he's also one of the unique planes that had a parachute on top of it. So like if you lost power, like you could deploy the chute and float down. So they floated.
I've never heard of that.
Dude,
That's awesome.
It's actually pretty rad.
Wow.
This is a civilian plane.
Yep, civilian. It's like a
The whole plane comes down with the parachute.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. It's up in the top and it deploys and it floats the whole thing down. And then I think that guy got picked up by a we call him a Good Sam, but it was a cruise ship picked him up. So so we didn't end up launching on that. Come fast forward, it's after dinner time. It's just about to start getting dark, and the pipe goes off, and it's like like SAR alarm, and they're like later to the op center, air plane crash, and I'm just like, did someone like change over duty like from earlier in the day, and like this is getting like rehashed, and I was like, this seems odd, and then so we start getting more information, but it is another small plane. Like a Cessna type plane, and we get briefed on it. We're gonna go out. They're on their way back. They're having trouble. They think they're gonna make it. They're not gonna make it. They're not sure. So we're just gonna get moving to be there just in case. And so as we're taxiing out, I'm sitting in the back of the plane, like, and you're always trying to decipher of like, is this gonna be a real deal? Is this gonna be a nothing burger? And the dispatch, the sector came over the radio and was just like, hey, their last known position was here. And I'm like, okay, well, that changes everything. And so, I break open my backpack and start pulling wetsuits out and stuff and start changing gears. And we take off from Barber's Point and head to the last known. And it's actually like we get there and it's just getting dusky and we don't really see anything. And like, I'm starting to break out night vision in the back, and one of the pilots was like, hey, can you double check the position? We just want to make sure we're in the right location. And they'd actually given us, or we had copied wrong, like the last known. So we got the appropriate position and went to it. And by that time it was just dark. So you're just looking out the window at, like a sheet of black. And as we're coming around the orbit, we're going to do like a first turn circle and like try and like get our eyeballs out and start spotting and stuff. So I come under nods. And looking out the window, and then all of a sudden, like in this like big window of black, like in the dead center, like just bing, a little light comes on. And I was like, and I lift up my goggles and I still see the light. And then I come back down and I was like, I got a light. And they're like, all right, vector us in. So, get the pilot to pull around, show him his position and stuff. And then we come into a hover and like, boom, there's this dude treading water, like waving his arms. He's got no shirt and he's in some blue jeans. And, it's fun, like in your school scenarios, when you go through rescue swimmer school, they always set up these scenarios where like, like, oh, we'll never see this in real life, like, but literally there's a guy like who's in blue jeans, he's got no shirt on and he's waving his arms, and in the distance you can see two other people and they have life jackets on and they're floating by themselves all calm, and you're like, I've seen this before. Okay. All right, we know what to do here.
So is he like on a vessel?
Nope. So
he's just in the water.
They were just in the water. So, we can circle back, but they had been flying. They were on one of the outer islands. I think they were coming back from Kauai, and on their way back, it was two guys that were in the Army, his wife, and then unbeknownst to me at the time, their almost 2-year-old daughter. And so that always gets to be the difficult part. But I got kids now, so it changes the scope of the story.
Sure.
So we go down on the cable to pick up the first guy, and we were talking about how they got to where they were. As they're flying back from Kauai, they got what's called like vapor lock in the carburetor on the plane. It's like, I guess it's supposed to have a de-ice system, and the de-ice, which is just, when you fly at altitude, it's still pretty cold, so like it'll freeze the fuel. So I guess they had vapor lock in the carb. Engine went dead, and they start gliding down, and like that dude, like rock star, just like scoot, just skated on the water, and they all gathered their thoughts, and the two in the back like grabbed their life jackets and put them on, and then like the guy in the front grabbed his and put it in his lap, and then they all like, you know, like made the decision, okay, we're gonna pop the doors and we're gonna get out. Like, okay, cool. As soon as they popped the doors, like they were thinking that like they might have a second to get out, but the plane filled with water so fast that guy like lost his life jacket. The two in the back got out with the daughter, and so they just were, you know, inflated life jackets. And then when she heard the helicopter come around, she bit the end of, there's a little saltwater activated light on those airline vests. You know, we've all seen them whenever you're getting the presentation, when you're like, you know, pull here and, you know, all that kind of jazz. So yeah, the saltwater activated light kicked on, and that's what I saw in her night vision. Like that's a really nice picture. You're like, that's obviously a light. Off goggles, it's very, very dim, hard to see. But if you already knew it was there, it was easy to pick up again. So at any rate, they had popped out. Home dude lost his life jacket. He was treading water. The couple was floating with their kid. And I come down on the cable, and like, you know, you have your priorities of work. And from what I could see initially, you know, like I'm like, all right, there's a guy here who's got no flotation. I got two people over there. They're floating. They're fine. He's priority. So get him out. So I go over, I get him, and like, you know, and he's a bit of like, yeah, you know, carrying on. The helicopter's overhead, so I can't exactly hear what he was saying. And I was just like, hey, man, just be calm. I'm going to get you out of here, you know, put him in a tow. And one of the, you know, we always call it like icy, which is like in close in control. So like, since he was being a little bit mouthy, like I really gave him like a solid, like, you know, bear hug as I'm towing him through. Put him in the basket, and he goes up to the plane, and I go back to swim over to the two people I saw in the life jackets.
So you sent him up.
Yep.
You didn't go with him.
Nope.
You went to the other people.
Yep. So like primary means of rescue is always going to be the basket. You know, like you can get a lot of work done with that pretty quickly. And also, like, most everybody's familiar with like rescue swimmers doing the jumps from the helo, but at nighttime we don't jump. At night we have to go down on the cables, so it's a reason for cable deployment too to the water. So find the other two, and I swim over, and that's about the time that I realized, and it also dawns on me probably what other dude was yelling at me for was like, they have a kid. And I see like that, you know, like they are literally holding like this baby, you know, and it's just like, okay, well that this is a first, and that definitely like up the ante of the rescue scenario pretty quickly. And so the wife, I was like, all right, so you know, women and children first. So I'm like, hey, do you think that you can hold on to your daughter, and like, you know, I can tow you in your life jacket, and you know. She definitely had some like real signs of like panic, and I'm like, well, I've got to try and like reduce my number of people, and I've got a panicked survivor now. So so the husband, it's like one of these like hard decisions, and you know, he's like Monday morning quarterback yourself, and you're like, all right, well, he's chill, and he's got this child, and they're doing okay. She's clearly not okay, so she's out of here. So take her. Put her in the basket. She goes up. She goes away. So then, like, comes back to getting the man and the daughter, and come back to him. And you know, like, I'm starting to give the signal for pickup to the helo, and they're just like hovering there. And so I pick up on the radio, and I was just like, "Hey, what's going on, you guys?" And they're like, "Oh, we're getting heavy, so we're gonna dump fuel. Stand by." And I'm like, "No, standing by. We got a child down here. Come and get me. Come and get me right now." And they were like, "Roger that." And you saw the helo like take immediate action and start to move in for pickup. So yeah, and it's one of those things where it's pretty wild. Like I've got kids now, so like I've got this guy's like 2-year-old kid, and I'm putting him in the basket, and I take this kid, and I literally like held it up out of the water like one hand. I dunked this guy in and get him in the basket, and then like scoop this kid back into his arms, and then boom, they go up and go away. And that was like one of the biggest like reliefs, like feeling that basket going up, knowing that kid was going to safety. And then, Yep, they came back in, picked me up. We go back and land at the airport, and we get them handed off to EMS, and everybody was okay. Like, there was some like minor car accident, like bumps and bruises and stuff, and that turned into being a pretty big deal as far as like the news showed up and. Start asking questions and all that kind of stuff. And my boss at the time, Jeremy Carroll, was really good at always making sure that like the boys got recognized and stuff. So put us in for multiple awards from that. That was definitely one of the highlights. And then, man, I think it was like would have been about 2 years ago. I think it was like. My daughter's getting ready to turn 2 in January, and it's like December, and I'm holding her in my arms, and I'm just like realizing that holy cow, like you're huge. Like in my mind, when I go back to that scenario, like that kid's like the size of a water bottle, and I'm just like, I was like, how in the mother of God did I just like hold this child like in my palm, and like, yeah, super surreal, and like you do things at certain times, and you don't realize like. The gravity of like what you've done, and like my wife and I, we didn't have kids, and the mother of that kid was super sweet, and she would send us messages on Facebook and stuff, and then she's like I was just doing my job and stuff, and like
how would your rescue plan have changed had you known there was a kid first, or
man
would it have?
It's easy to say that like to me, like even when I kind of dissect it and sitting here now, like I really shouldn't, like the guy didn't have flotation. Like he's already been treading water for 45 minutes. Like you could be like, hey, you're fine. I'm going to go over here and get this kid, and like, and you come back later on and he's give out. And then, that would have been a big oopsie. So I mean, he was definitely like the highest priority. I think it's sometimes when I go back and forth, it's like, like the mom was wearing a life jacket. She might've been okay for, she wasn't going to go anywhere. But yeah, it all happened how it happened, and the story ended up being a good story. So you don't really try to pick at it too much.
No, I didn't know if there was like a women and children type first prioritizing thing.
Anyone that doesn't have flotation or like shows like signs of panic, like that would be like your number one priority. Like if you've got somebody who's being like super easy and chill. There was another case. It was like my very first case. It was a dad and like his daughter and a son-in-law and 2 dogs in a boat in South Carolina. And when I went down to the boat, it was my first rescue, man. I swam to the edge of that boat like I was Michael Phelps. And I mean, like it was completely unnecessary. And I was like just gassed by the time I was like, I'm Donnie Walker. I'm a Coast Guard rescue swimmer. I'm here to help you. And like this guy, like just super intense, like Ashton Kutcher doesn't have a chance. But so I get to the edge of the boat, and I spit out my line from school, and this guy looks at me, man, and he was like, "Don't come down to my boat, start barking orders at me, boy." And I was like, man,
I'm the captain of this boat.
Dude, literally, this guy is high and dry, too. Like, they've grounded themselves on a sandbar and, like, it's probably old Milwaukee cans from judging off of his character, floating around the back of this boat. And, and so, like, that thought process enters, and I'm just like, hey, man, I'm just here to help, like, do you want to go? I'll take you first. We'll get you out of here. And like, because at that point, like he's my biggest problem.
Yeah.
I've got a drunk a-hole on this boat. So I just want to get rid of this dude. And he's like, no, take her. And I'm like, all right, sounds good. You're giving the orders around here. Got it. And so, yeah.
So it's completely just situational, your discretion, and you're making all the judgments when you're kind of in that situation.
Yeah, so that's definitely one of the things that's unique about the rescue swimmer and the Coast Guard. We operate solo wherever we go, and like while like on our way out there, the guy who's running the show is the aircraft commander in the front of the cockpit. But at the moment a rescue swimmer sets foot on a boat vessel in the ocean, I take over the job as the conductor. And so you're making all the decisions on scene as far as like, like who goes when, where, and what.
Like you said, with the plane that had, or the helicopter had to come back in when you called it back in.
Yeah, and like, and some of that's just like, like he's making his decisions based on what they need in the helicopter above, and he doesn't have the information down on the scene. And you're like, hey man, we need picked up right away. I got a baby down here, and he's like, cool. If we get close to over torquing, we can justify, but yeah, that's definitely one of the more unique things about it. Like whenever we get a lot of respect from the other services too, like being at Navy dive school, you have a dive buddy, so you're gonna be in a pair. Navy rescue swimmers operate in a pair. Pararescue guys operate in a pair, and then SEAL team guys are in teams. And then Ranger Regiment fire teams. So like we're one of the few folks, and that's one of the things they always say, that we're like super crazy. Like what was it? There was some dudes in Panama City that were there for SDV, which is the SEALs submersible class. Their little mini sub that they do their clandestine stuff on. And so I'm like, man, Navy SEALs, these dudes are badass, And they're like, bro, you're a Coast Guard rescue swimmer? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, that's badass. And I'm just like, well, you guys get shot at. And they're like, you go in the ocean by yourself with sharks, you win. And I'm like, we'll agree to disagree. But yeah, there's you get to interact with a lot of different people, and even now in the firearms community, the different dudes I get to rub elbows with now, like in the training community, like it's always cool to be like, this is what I did, and it's always different perspectives.
When did you start in your life? When did you start getting into firearms?
So when I was a kid, my grandfather was the firearms guy, and man, Gramps had a way. He's definitely one of like the guys that I get, a lot of my upbringing comes from my grandfather, as far as like, what to aspire to be and how to be a man. He before I was even allowed to touch a firearm, he gave me the NRA handbook on like gun safety, and I'm imagining like, it was probably for a kid. But I had to sit at the dinner table, and so during the summers, I would go out and stay with my grandparents. They lived in Oklahoma. My family's in Mobile. But I would go and stay with them for, when I was a kid, I think it felt like a month, but it was probably in reality only a week. But so I'd go out there and spend a week with my grandfather, and and he would do his best to grow me up right. So one of those times was sitting at the dinner table and going down the NRA handbook, line by line, and I had to figure, read it all, and then there was a literal test that he devised afterwards, and and then when I passed the test, I got to operate a BB gun.
The Red Ryder.
And then there was a progression, man. Like he was the military guy, and he was an LE guy as well. So there was a progression, like once you were good with the air rifle, you graduated 22, and then 410, and then 12 gauge, and so on and so forth. And he delivered firearms safety lessons with a stiff wrist.
Sounds like it.
So there was a time we were out on they had some farm property, and we were out on the farm, and my Uncle Vincent gave me a 12 gauge to hold while him and my grandfather were taking care of something. And so I just stood there with it like cross saddle, like just holding it in my hands like a log or something, and didn't check safety, didn't check any of that. And so like, as unbeknownst to me, like my granddad comes up from around behind me, sticks his finger in that trigger guard. I didn't see any of this, and then all of a sudden, whoop, boom, 12 gauge goes off in my hands, and he was just like, don't you ever hold a firearm like that, ever. Wow. And you always check to see if it's safe. So
yikes.
So gosh. Somehow, I I got a good
How do you
lesson out of that.
justify that?
Is that in the handbook?
Safety.
Is that in the handbook?
Oh my!
This is after you go through the NRA handbook,
Okay.
right?
Wow.
So,
Level 2.
love you, dude. No hate.
Gramps ain't playing.
Yeah. It's probably also my dad has some stories of my grandpa. They didn't always see eye to eye, if you can imagine.
Yeah.
So I'm probably lucky I didn't have to go through my adolescent years with him. But yeah, both my grandfathers were pretty carved out of wood dudes.
Nice.
But
So they introduced you to firearms.
Yep.
Kind of got their.
yeah, and then I never really got into them super heavy. Like my dad hunted for a real brief period, but my dad was an entrepreneur. He owned his own business, so he was really busy with work. We did a lot of fishing. We were growing up in Mobile, so I was on the Gulf Coast. So like I spent a lot of time on the water. We fished a lot, and we kept a 22 on the boat for whenever we would go offshore. So we would catch some big sharks every once in a while and freaking cap it before we either tried to get it off or whatever.
In the Coast Guard, is there any firearm training at all? Like,
Yeah. So when you come on board, at boot camp, you're going to get Beretta. It was the Beretta 9 was the pistol. It was in service at that time, and so you got qualified on the 92, and and I qualified on it. But like, man, I go back and think about my pistol shooting then, and like, rough. And I thought I knew how to, because like we had one at home. My dad had a bunch of guns, and every once in a while we'd go out to like the gully behind the house and and do some blasting or whatever, which is pretty much the equivalent of like modern day shooting beer cans, that kind of thing. White Claws today. This is Coke cans back then. So we never really did any kind of like real like organized shooting. No one really made time for hunting. We fished. So I had a love for water and love for being on boats, and I still kind of do.
Do you, like in the Coast Guard, did you carry, like as far as like
No. So I mean, like I was it was funny, man. I was all about life saving, never so much about life taking.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't really like I wasn't really an aggressive person like growing up. Like I didn't play football. I mean, I played soccer, which we were, I was definitely, there was a streak there where, I was catching some red cards here and there, and I played defense. So,
is anybody on that helicopter
armed? Nope.
Okay.
In one caveat to that, I went on a deployment down to Great Anagua, and we were really close to Cuba.
Yeah.
So there had to be someone armed on the plane at that point, because the 60s that we were flying on, like, they have radios, and the radios have codes and stuff. And so if ever we had to, land in an unfriendly area, we would be able to protect those radio codes.
So, like, let's just say there's drug dealers or even illegals that are trying to come in. I mean, I would imagine you're going to be involved in that on some level, right? Like, or
we would report it. We would cite it and report it and pass that stuff.
But how
up
do you
the
know
chains.
until you if there's people in a vessel?
Yeah.
So
there is a unit that does that specifically. The unit in Jacksonville. And their whole thing is drug interdiction, and like some of those dudes are like some of the best like helicopter marksmen, like that are out there. It's their bread and butter. So shooting on the move is definitely in their wheelhouse. And that's what they do, and it's a specific deployment and a specific detachment to a cutter, and like so there's. That role is assigned. So you would go out and you might see some things or whatever, be like, hey, like we were on a patrol and we saw a fishing vessel with the flag that wasn't supposed to be in an area that was supposed to, that was in an area that wasn't supposed to be in. And then we'd report that. But like, as far as to like get close and like do anything about it,
never.
nope, we're for search and rescue, So, singular mission.
Okay.
I mean, there were times where we would get tasked with like, what was it? PWCS, like ports, waterways, and coastal area security. And that was kind of like after, I guess it would have been like Afghanistan stuff going on. So we would come down and like shadow some of the submarines coming out of the sub base here. Gosh, of course, the name escapes me now. You guys were talking about it in the podcast. Yep. Kings Bay.
Kings Bay, yeah.
Yep. So we would come down and we would shadow the subs coming out of there. And we always kind of joke about it because we didn't have any kind of weapons in the helicopter. And it was just like, so what are we supposed to do if we see something?
Yeah.
This is an interesting role. It'd be like, hey, there's a dude over there with an RPG. Might want to watch out for that. We're going to get out of here.
Have you ever been in the water on a boat when the sub came in?
Yeah. Have I not talked about it on this podcast?
I don't think so. Tell it.
We were fishing in the inlet in Kings Bay. My parents.
So between Fernandina and so the border of Florida and Georgia, the St. Mary's River, you come in that river, Fernandina is on the
south side.
Yep. And then Kings Bay, which is a naval sub base, and they have nuclear subs with nuclear missiles.
One of my best friends growing up, his dad worked on the Trident missile program in Kings Bay.
Yeah.
He'd have to drive there every day I don't know what he did specifically, but he worked on the Trident missile, and they were all out of Kings Bay. But so we had a boat with my dad, and we would always put it in Fernandina and go fishing in the jetties. And one day we're out there fishing just right up against the jetties for sheephead or whatever's coming in right there. And this patrol boat comes up on us fast, like super fast, and just stalls. He looks in our boat, like there's, I don't know what, I guess they're MPs or some kind of Navy.
Coast Guard.
Maybe Coast Guard.
I think those were Navy dudes.
They were.
So I just did a dent for a guy who was a Coast Guard officer, and he was saying that who knows what it was back then.
Yeah.
But right now he was a Coast Guard officer at Kings Bay, and the Coast Guard does that. So they escort the subs in and out.
They would just go up to every boat that was anchored or positioned in the jetties to make sure that we're not hostile or armed or carrying whatever. And they just pull up real fast, try to surprise you, and then look in your boat, make sure you're good.
They got mounted machine guns.
And they would just zigzag,
there, right?
Yeah, they would just zigzag all the way down, checking on every boat. And then after, we're like, what the heck was that? And then all of a sudden, you see this huge sub come in, which is one of the craziest things I've ever seen. Because it's dead quiet.
It moves so much water.
It just, and it was, I guess,
it's
maybe
black.
like 15% was out of the water. So it was like, it was just, what they call it, displacing all this water in front of it, this huge mound, and it's
so
dead
crazy.
quiet. And I think there was a couple guys standing on deck, like, like
we're submariners.
It was like, that was pretty sick. That was pretty sick.
Watch it go by,
incredible, and then like dead quiet. Other than just water rippling, it was pretty intense. But yeah, that
submariners, some odd dudes.
Yeah.
Even if there was like a submariner dude and he was watching this right now and he was like, yeah, we're kind of weird.
So
you gotta be.
Did a dent at the on-base housing at Kings Bay for an enlisted guy, and he was 19 years in, and he'd been on a sub like his whole career. He said he had spent 5 years of his life underwater on a submarine.
That's dude was salty.
Yeah,
super salty. That's rad.
That's crazy.
Like, that dude's hard.
I mean,
when you got a statement like that, like 5 years underwater. Yeah, bud.
Yeah, not many people could say that.
I'm like freaking Aquaman.
That's crazy. I mean,
it's kind of the equivalent of being on a space station. Dude. I mean, it's essentially like you're in a foreign. Like,
would you rather be in a spaceship in space or in a submarine like under the ocean?
Well, I think the spaceship gets the cred, like the street cred. Like,
I mean, what's scarier to you?
They're both just as. I mean,
submarine is frightening to me. I don't like it.
Nope, not one bit. You wouldn't catch me there.
But
I know way too much about water in these days that, like, even now, like when you know you're like, hey, you want to go offshore fishing? I'm kind of like, hey, I don't know, man.
But wouldn't you say that
Kinda sketchy.
space is even more scary? Like they're both scary, but like space is like we've been in water, we've been underwater. We don't want to stay there, but like you've never been to space.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
reverse drowning, right?
Yeah.
And you're. I guess it's space is open, just as lethal, but a submarine being tight and enclosed, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, are you just going to get
Either one
immediately
is instant,
crushed? And,
instant death.
Yeah.
Either one.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm
there's
thinking
no-
of like The Abyss and then like Hunt for Red October and like that whole like beer can effect, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna sit this one out.
Hunt for Red October.
Yeah.
One of the best old school movies.
Yeah,
that guy said that there were 8 decks on one of those nuclear missile subs, and they're like 50 feet tall or something like that. Like those things are so big, but you can't. Yeah, I've seen them come in there, and you only see a tiny bit,
Yeah.
but that thing is humongous.
So in Chicago, you can go to the Museum of Science and History, maybe Industry. I
Okay.
don't know. But anyhow, there's an old German U-boat in there. You can
No way.
walk
Out
through.
of the water? Or is
yeah,
it
it's
like,
in the museum. You can go all through
Whoa.
it, check it out, go in the galley and go in all the quarters. And
That's
the
cool.
Engine. You can go in all those places. It's really cool. And then you realize like
that must have sucked.
this place sucks.
Yeah,
Nope, everything's tight. No
Yeah.
privacy.
Have y'all seen that movie Greyhound?
no,
Best Navy movie you'll ever see. Tom Hanks. It was on Apple Movies or whatever, Apple TV. Incredible.
Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks is the captain of this ship, and they're escorting. It's during World War II, and these boats. I don't know what you call them, but they escort, ships taking supplies to Europe and back, and they're protecting them from the U-boats. And so it is incredible. Absolutely.
It's a new movie?
No, not that new. Few years old, but the way that it's shot, you get the feel like you're on this ship and you're feeling like the weight of everything that's happening. And they're throwing those. I don't even know what you call them, but they go underwater and explode to depth charges.
yeah,
Depth charges. Unbelievable, man! Like the way that it's shot. I'm kind of a nerd for like film videography.
Yeah.
Incredible. You'll love it.
What's it?
Watch it tonight.
What is it?
Maybe tomorrow. Greyhound, which is the name of the ship.
I'm gonna write it down.
That's the best Navy movie, I think.
Okay.
Well, okay, minus like SEAL stuff.
We'll see. We'll
like
see.
Navy vessel, Navy ship movie.
and I don't know if you know this either, but I actually work on some film projects in Savannah. It's like one of the like retirement gigs, we'll call them, like that I have of all the things that I do. When I was starting to segue out, a buddy of mine lived down the street from the guy who's the Marine coordinator of Savannah, Georgia. And so like whenever films come to Savannah, they generally are trying to be on the water, catch those scenes. So like they have to have like specific water safety personnel, and who better than
Cool.
retired Coast Guard rescue swimmers. So me and my buddy, every once in a while, like we worked on Fear the Walking Dead, like season 8 or whatever, and like we even got some like cameos in there. And so like, but yeah, so like film was very interesting. I was interesting, when I was a kid, movies were coming on strong, and so like now like to go and like see like how it all like gets done, it's super fascinating. Like even like how we're doing this here, like there's a camera for you, a camera for you, a camera for me, and you're like, oh, that makes sense. And you're like, when you look at a film now, like you kind of dissect it, like you're like, oh, it's like 4 dudes sitting in a booth in a coffee shop, and you're like, oh, it's a nightmare setup, man. They're gonna be there all day, because like they're gonna film it from your perspective and then your perspective, and those are all separate setups. Generally, it might be able to catch like 2 in a one go, but like, and they're gonna say the same lines over and over and over. And you get an appreciation, one, for like the craft of like being able to like say the same thing like over and over again,
That already has a little bit of that.
And then, but then also
That
like,
was freaking low blow. just so you know.
oh man, but
He edits all my videos, is why I was saying that, because I have this. I'm really bad.
dude,
It's a lot of work.
oh yeah,
To get a little piece of finished video is so much work.
dude,
Yes.
I learned a lot about it.
Oh, Marcio. He knows.
Like having to come up with like, you know, I kept thinking that like doing the low country thing that like I would just be able to be like this shadowy figure in the background and like put on this event. And like I started to realize that like if I wanted the word to get out there or to like, you know, do some form of advertisement, like I was going to have to start making little videos and like, yeah, there's a lot that goes into, even if you're just filming on your cell phone, like to like try and make it look professional or to like posh it up a bit. Like it's just, it's, you know, it's an event that happens once a year, but there's an entire year of work that goes into it. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's kind of similar to what we're doing. Is that like you're the sole one trying to push it and market it, and the same with what we're doing here. We do products and we do training. We have all these things that, and if you're not making content, then you're forgotten about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you have to be relevant, and you've been really good at posting. I mean, I watch every time I open my Instagram, I see you're at least put a story out or something.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing is like you try to like, you know, like you start looking at analytics and like how to build the wave and like, and then if you want companies to come and spend their time at your event, they want to know like, you know, what kind of footprint do you have?
You got to be legit.
Yeah, and you know, so some of that's about being professional as well too. You know, but it's fun. You know, it's like it pushes you into new realms. Like you know, it's always you know pushing yourself out of that comfort zone. And then, but yeah, like the film aspect though, man, like you get a real appreciation too for like how hard the people behind the scenes in films work, man. The lighting, the, you know, electric, the riggers, you know, the grips, all those dudes like, and then if they film 2 locations in a day, I think that's probably the most impressive thing I've seen is that like when they just break the whole shop down and then load up in their vans and their trailers and trucks, and then they go to the next film site and do it all over again in one day. And you're just like, it's like, it looks like an ant village, you know, like everyone just like does their thing. They're all super pros for the most part. It's always outliers in anything, but like I've been very impressed with like how professional, like in the work ethic of most of the people I've been on film sets with. But
All right, so tell us how
Segue
you
and a half
translated,
right there.
yeah, how all this transitioned into low country. So where did this come from, and where did
how do we get to here?
How did we get to here?
Man, so kind of similar to you. Obviously, like you know, from the stories I've shared so far, I really don't do half of anything. I don't go half-ass. I go whole ass. So, I'm going to courses similar to you. You know, like I'm going to. My first coach was Jared Seagraves. You
Really?
know? Yep. I went to Haley Strategic Rifle class, and that was like 5 years ago. And I realized how much of a layer of the onion, that existed at that point.
So you got a gun at some point, and you started shooting, and then you realize I got to get trained.
I guess we'll go to like step 1.
Yeah.
And the step 1 was like a positive pregnancy test, and and
That'll change your life.
Yep.
yeah.
Say no more.
Scope got way bigger of the world. So that occurred, and that was also about the time of, you guys remember the pandemic? I think that happened like 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yeah. It was,
Okay, I remember.
Google it.
Yeah, Florida didn't get much of that.
I mean, I was in Georgia. It was pretty decent, but I'm in Savannah. We do the best we can. There's a lot of art there.
Yeah.
But so
So you live in Savannah?
Yep.
Okay. What part of town?
Pretty much in Midtown, like where all the pretty oak trees and stuff are. We were fortunate to snag a place to live there, and
Do you live in like a historic building?
No. My house was built in 55, so it's just old enough to give me a headache and not old enough to mean anything.
Yeah, it's like my house.
Yeah. But it's a great house, man. I have a huge red oak in the front yard and a 5-trunk live oak in my side yard, and then 2 other oaks in the back. So, we got some hanging moss. We got a vibe, which I'm all about.
Yeah.
That low country vibe. So
We got some oak trees between the two of us.
Yeah.
yeah, they're good when you keep them up. That's for sure.
Yeah.
When they're not, they go.
Mine just drops leaves constantly. Like I think,
I got to go to the bathroom.
It's spring. It's gonna be it's still dropping leaves. Like it never doesn't drop leaves. Like it's pretty ridiculous.
Do you guys keep rolling on brakes or?
Yeah, we'll keep going.
Word up.
We'll keep going. Yeah. This is the first time.
Oh yeah,
James. Yeah, no one's
he
ever
never
left.
does this.
He must have to go. I don't know.
He's been sitting on it for a minute.
He must probably have that Chipotle for lunch. I don't know.
I'm just like, how much more of this Red Bull, before I really start getting off topic?
So you had a positive pregnancy test, and
Yep.
you're having a kid, and so
Having
then
a kid, the
you're
world's
like,
crazy.
I need a gun.
Yeah, man. So, I don't really care who you are or what side of the, fence you're on. I'm like, if you're coming up my driveway, you're barking up the wrong tree,
Yeah.
And so I become a dad. I get a Scotch territorial, and I've got way more at stake on the line. And so started to carry, and then was going to a range. I actually right about that time. So in the rescue swimmer shop, some of the dudes were into guns, and one of the guys on our staff was really into guns. Like got out of the Coast Guard, became an armorer, and then did that for a while, and got back in and was in the shop. Well, he was getting ready to leave, and someone was like, "Hey, man, we should get Mike like a gun type going away gift." And I'm like, "Yeah." And so we try to figure out what to do. So we think of getting a lower receiver, laser engraved with the shop logo on it, and his dates, and give it to him as a parting gift. He was a really good dude. And so I started talking to some people who knew about guns in the area, and they were like, "Hey, I know this dude Chris who runs this place called C&B Quality Coatings. You should go over there and see what he can do." And so I met Chris at C&B. He started doing the going away gifts for the shop, and that was like 2019-ish. We started hanging out, and I think we started shooting together. But then 2020 happened. I became a dad, and things got heated. And so, or I guess just they picked up speed.
Yeah.
The necessity grew.
Got serious.
Yeah. And so Chris and I were just shooting out at the range at that point. He was pretty much teaching me everything that he knew.
Are you still in the Coast Guard at this point?
Yep, full time, full duty. I think we were like a 1 in 4. So like so 1 in 4 would be like every 4th day you'd be staying in a 24-hour watch. And that Savannah is a very busy unit. We have 2 duty stations that we cover. So there's the Savannah unit, and then there's a satellite unit up in Charleston. So we run 2 ready helicopters every night. So if you're 10 guys and all 10 guys are up, that's 1 in 5. Because one of you is going to Charleston and one of you is staying in Savannah, and we're covering the coastline from the North Carolina, South Carolina border all the way down to here.
Oh, nice.
Which
That's a lot of coastline.
Yeah, Fernandina.
Wow.
Yeah. So we got a lot of area to watch and little gas tanks to do it in. But anyhow, so active duty still, and for me, it's never enough. It's always more. I can go harder. When I was getting into fitness in the Coast Guard, like as a active duty rescue swimmer, I'm like, I got to stay fit. I got to stay strong, and I got into bodybuilding, and I went all the way to like the national level in bodybuilding, which is like just shy of like turning pro, and let's say like the biggest competition I ever did was nationals out in Las Vegas. I finished 8th, and the first and second place guy turned pro. So I was like, 6 spots away from being a pro bodybuilder, which is still kind of a long way. But anyway, I was serious.
Yeah.
That's the point I'm making.
Committed.
Yeah. Committed.
Yeah.
Like asylum. So we get committed with guns. So shooting at the local range is not enough. So like I'm starting to, see what's going on online. I'm learning everything I can from the interwebs. That guy Mike Jones is really popular on YouTube about this time, and he's always talking about Haley Strategic, Bear Solutions, Cogworks, always list those training companies. And I was like, all right, let's look one of these guys up. And so Haley came pretty close to us in North Carolina, so I finally talked Chris into going. And like Chris is like, I don't know, man, it seems kind of expensive. And I was like, let's just go see what it's all about. And it's a 3-day rifle class, and like, whew, the rest is history, as they say. I did that rifle class, and then shortly after that, I ended up meeting Duffy. I took John Dufresne's weaponized geometry at the shoot house in Savannah at Blue Force Gear. That also kind of threw my life for a curveball. Was stepping in there, and
What do you mean? Threw your life for a curveball?
There's a guy who works there. His name's Chris Sizelove. He's now my boss. One of my bosses. So I also work as a product educator contractor for Blue Force Gear. So it's an odd job I felt like at the time for a retiring rescue swimmer to have. But I was going to a lot of classes, and I knew about from my experience as far as like being a rescue swimmer, I knew how to like set up kit, and figured out like, well, this works, that doesn't work, and then go use it, and then, process of elimination, like, all right, well, that's shit, this is good, keep this, move that. So by the time I got to this class and I met Chris, he's like looking me up and down, and he's just like, hey, who are you? What's your name? And like, you got your stuff all your stuff's in one sock over here. Like you seem like you know what you're doing. Well, tell me your story. And, that was probably the first time I met him. And I think, John Duffy, impressed upon me at the time. He's like, well, if you live in the local area and, there's classes that come through here all the time, you probably should just, come and take classes at your local shoot house as often as you can. And so I just started popping up at classes from there from time to time, and, developed a relationship with Chris. And then now, like, I work for them. It's starting to get to be quite often now. I got an event. I'm headed to New York for them on Monday. Next Monday, I just did SHOT Show, was at the booth all week. So just the moral of the story is I just do whatever.
You know Sheldon?
No.
Oh. So the company that runs SHOT Show, they own our big trade show.
Oh.
And it's the week before our big trade show. So we're always trying to get them to get us into SHOT Show.
Dude.
But they're always exhausted because that's the week before our show.
I could see that. It is definitely a marathon. I thought I knew.
Is Sheldon running SHOT Show?
I don't know what his role is with SHOT Show, but I know Convex, the company that runs SHOT Show, is the company that owns.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was its own industry as well.
Yeah.
Like
trade shows?
Yeah, like so there's a guy that lives up the street from me, like that they have a child similar age as us, so like all the local families in your area. But they're friends of ours, and we're like, hey, what do you do? He's like, oh, I do trade shows. And you're like, well, what do you mean you do trade shows? and literally like sets up booth, helps them run, like I'm like, what? Like and then of course I go to SHOT Show and I'm like, oh, you're like, the circus came to town. Like it's that was an experience.
I can't imagine that.
So,
ours is a big production.
So
tiny.
Wheels is a guy who works for them, and he's in a wheelchair, and he races sport bikes. So he's a really cool dude. But he is the organizer for the vendors when you come to the park and you have to unload to go into these things. So he organizes our event, and he helps with SHOT Show. at our event there was 125 booths. At SHOT Show, he said there's over 2,000 vendors.
Dude, someone told me like this was a wild stat to me. They were like, if you go to SHOT Show and it's like 4 days long, they're like, if you want to go to every single booth at the trade show for the entire trade show, all their operating hours, you can be at every booth for 11 seconds.
Oh my goodness.
That's crazy.
I was like,
Is
what?
it in separate
Yeah, it's like
floors,
separate levels,
buildings?
separate tiers.
Okay.
Like,
wow.
there was like a few booths that I wanted to go to while I was there, and so like every once in a while I would catch a break from the BFG booth, and like I would literally like look up on the app because there's a flipping app for the event, which also kind of blew my mind. And I'd be like, all right, cool. I want to go see the dudes at KGM. They're here, and I'm like, how do I get there?
Yeah.
And it's literally like a 15-minute walk.
It's like Denver Airport where you got to take an underground shuttle to the next.
I was like, I don't know if I'm going to make it to see those guys.
Yeah.
Like Jeff and the guys from Primary Arms were like basically on the opposite side of the earth for me, and like I wasn't able to make it by the booth until the very end of the last day. And like by the time I got there, like I ran into like one of the guys I knew, and like they were pretty much packing everything up, and I was like, hi.
Wow.
It's just it's a circus, man. But
right.
that was interesting.
Low country. Back to low country. So
Yeah, man. There's a lot going on, man. It's like when everyone's like, tell me about your life and what you're doing. And I'm like, bro, what end of the, where do we start?
You decided to start your own trade show, kind of outside.
Dude, yeah. Like when we were talking earlier, and you're like, yeah, you're like the guy who, like you're the marketing guy, you're the finance guy, like at a company, like there's like a team of people that do all this stuff, and it's just like,
yeah.
I had no idea when I was getting into it. I was like, oh, this seems like a good idea. This will be fun. And like, it's fun for sure. But man, if you're uninitiated, there was a time where I was like, I really got to, get this on the books and get this going, or, someone might take this idea from me. And then like about like a month or so in, I was like, no one's coming to take this. No one wants, no one's
It's a lot of
signing up.
work. We talk about that too with what kind of
Yeah.
some of the same things. It's like, dude, the amount of work, like it sounds easy at face value,
Yeah,
you know,
man.
some of these things, endeavors that you decide to do, but then once you're in it, you're like, this is why people don't do it, because it's so much work. I mean, it's
I'm really fortunate that I signed myself up for it, but also like the fluidity that my schedule has, like I can either take a project or not take a project, and generally like if I'm doing something, it's firearms related. So like the two go hand in hand. And one feeds the other. Like when you're trying to come up with content, it's like, well, I'm going to end up at a firearms event, probably somewhere in the next month anyway. So while you're there, you just, throw a shirt on or whatever, and just try to.
So just to give everybody an idea of what we're talking about, like just get like a really quick breakdown of what is it?
Yeah.
Because I think I know, but I actually don't know completely.
So Low Country Range Days is a community-based firearms training event. So, and what that means is that like I hire up like 6 guest instructors this year that are going to come to the private range that we have in Hampton Island, which is a property that's just south of Savannah, about 35 minutes from the airport. And so we'll have those 6 instructors. Guests come, they buy a ticket to the event, and you get to choose 2 classes, 2 instructors to spend your weekend with. And while we're there, I try to pack in a lot of value for it. So this year is a little bit unique as far as there were things that were asked for last year that we put into place this year, and just kind of starting off from the beginning. Friday we'll get together. So it runs Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It is October 24th through the 26th this year. And we'll start to get together on Friday. The Friday day will begin with we're calling like a VIP sponsor experience. And it's basically like we're going to get, 5 or 6 of our higher level sponsors to come together and basically produce a packaged rifle. So say we're looking at the table here, you got Primary Arms optic, and this is an LMT rifle, and It's painted by C&B Quality Coatings. So that would be an example of like 3 sponsors that came together to put this rifle on a table for one of the attendees to come and shoot and experience. Be like, well, how good is this, and what is it? In what ways is it different from what I shoot now, and why would I want to or need to upgrade?
Yeah.
So that's going to be Friday day, and then we just move into like the actual event Friday evening, which was the way we started last year.
Is that part of it only open to certain people? Because you said VIP.
So it's just an extra ticket that you buy. So the event itself is $650 for the whole thing, and then to be a part of the VIP experience is an extra $100. And that ammo is provided, and we're going to take media content. So like even the attendees will have access to the media content for the day. So basically shooting custom guns, ammo is provided, and we're going to have a fancy catered lunch at the barn again. So that's the VIP thing. The sponsors last year just asked for more time with the attendees, and then to also like make it really quality time. So this was the best thing that I could come up with as far as to like give them some extra value, but also give the attendees some extra value, but also like keep it from turning into like a scuttled mess.
Yeah.
So we can keep it kind of focused and folks that are just wading into it don't have to participate. They can come and check out the event, and it's something that we can mold as we go. Any rate, Friday evening starts the actual event. We do event check-in Friday afternoon, and then we'll meet up at the barn, and we do a big low country boil. So like shrimp, red potatoes, corn. The guys,
sweet tea.
Yeah, the host and the banana pudding. Man,
banana pudding,
dude. I could eat that stuff till I get sick. There's a husband and wife couple that are the caretakers of the property, and they're phenomenal cooks. He does the boil, and she does the dessert, which is we always request the the banana pudding, and it's phenomenal. But so we get together and we eat. To me, like one of the big things about like if you've been to the training events, you go to a class, everybody gets there and they kind of like size each other up, and you're like, oh, I heard that guy's like a USPSA shooter, or like, oh, that dude's a SWAT guy, he's got that hat on. Like everybody starts sizing each other up, and like I really want to like dispatch with that, pretty quickly. So, we get together and we all eat together, and that kind of helps that little BS wall either not get created or get evaporated pretty quickly. So we all eat together, and then last year Sam Houston did a night vision lecture, so just kind of like educate everybody on like what night vision is and stuff like that, and that's Sam's forte. Last year guys were asked about medical stuff, so this year we're going to do like a stop the bleed class. So like we'll get to dinner, and then after dinner we'll take a little pause, and we'll talk medical stuff, stop the bleed, and like like a brief intro to like TCCC. And then
which means what?
Just basically like if we're all either there because we carry guns, or we're going to go shoot guns tomorrow, and like should an accident occur with a firearm or anything, like you could be driving down the highway and come across a car accident, and someone could be hemorrhaging blood, and you could be the person that steps in and buys them time.
What does TCCC stand for?
That's actually a really good question. When I said it, I was like, God, that's rough. I'm out of practice, folks. I'll have to look that up later.
First aid.
Yeah, it's more like it's like a military level of first aid, like, and you're treating gunshot wounds and sucking chest wounds and stuff like that. It's way above the scope of like what we're teaching. Like we're basically doing like a stop the bleed class. So like how to apply a tourniquet, pack with gauze, and just get that first line of like life-saving treatment. Because everyone who goes to these kind of classes or, you know, trains firearms regularly, you should be having, you know, certain things either on your person or near your training area. Like anytime you go out to the range, like, you know, like tourniquets and like hemorrhagic gauze. And that for folks that don't know, that's just like a gauze that contains an agent that once it, you know, gets with the blood, it reacts and it causes it to clot. So it's a lot of times it's called quick clot. And that's a brand name. But so like I said, too, one, I mean, like there's definitely some value there as far as like we're all going to get online and train with firearms the next day. So like prior to that, like getting together and talking about how like, hey man, if something bad happens tomorrow, like we all have like some baseline skills and awareness of like how to treat the situation. And if you go back to your range and you start practicing the skills that we're giving out here, you know, you also have some baseline knowledge of how to help yourself or help someone else. And, you know, or like there's lots of, you know, I think a lot of times we all get like really sucked in on like the gun or like shooting and all that. But I mean, like there's a lot of application for stuff like that, like outside of like the shooting space, you know. And that's another thing we try to talk about at Low Country as well, the community aspect. You know, like what do guys do outside of the event? You know, like what's your specialty? You know, like you know, I've talked about this in other shows where it's just like, you know, like I know guys who are industrial electricians. I know guys who are, you know, dig wells and create water for people. I know guys who are paramedics. I know guys who remove, you know, PDR.
Dents in cars.
So like we all have like
Our
Our
contribution
contribution to society was really low.
Oh my goodness.
You named all like essential. And then we take
people
dents
are
out
like
of
grouping
cars.
up, determining their value.
Yeah.
Matt and Tony. Did Mark go? Or it's just
Yeah,
Matt and Tony?
yeah, Mark.
They're all over there by themselves.
Yeah,
Like,
they
nobody
fix
wants
dents
us.
in
They don't
cars.
care.
Hey.
Our skills.
I don't know if you've been to the range.
If we have
but
any cars with dents, we'll call you guys. Other than
our
that,
range
stay in
is
the corner.
pretty rustic. So if someone's like, you know, bringing out their nice new truck to the range and they happen to roll over a stick and, you know, like it bangs the quarter panel,
I'll put some
your
tools on my kit
value
there we
your
can
value
carry.
goes up exponentially. I mean, you know, like, but we all have our specialties and things that like that we bring to the table, and like basically like we have things in common. And I guess when I say like PDR, like, you know, like when you tell me that, like I'm like, oh, dude, I'm into cars too. Like you're probably into cars, and we can start talking about cars, and we don't have to sit in here and talk about my AR-15 that I got, and I got this charging handle, and I got this, and I got that. You know, like
Yeah.
there's more to us than just the gun. And so, like, to me, like, that's where I want to try and get guys to go. That's why we get together for dinner first, is so that we can all get to know each other, and then, you know, and expand from there. And I think you saw that last year coming to the event. You know, like there was a lot of social time, and the location really worked out super well for.
And I didn't know any of the instructors prior. That Friday night was all, they were just normal dudes.
Yep.
And I was sitting by a bunch that I didn't know were going to be teaching the next day.
Yep.
And just having normal conversation. No one was wearing a I'm your instructor badge. It was just
Yeah.
guys sitting around eating shrimp.
About how many people were at it last year?
Last year was 50 people. This year, I mean, our numbers coming out the gate are like, I mean, we're like 500% more than we were last year. So like,
Wow.
for like the first month, you know, like last year, I mean, like, you know, I love numbers like that because it's like, whoa. But like, you know, like it was hard to get the word out. So like, we weren't really like flying off the shelves in the beginning.
Because
so,
that was your first year last year.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So, I mean, like, and that was kind of how, like, all right, cool, tickets go on sale. And you're like, man, tickets went on sale. Does anybody know? You know, like, and then you're like, oh, man, I probably should start creating content. Man, I should probably start getting out and hitting the road. I should probably get out and start doing this. And you figured out how to get the word out. And, like, and also, like, there were a lot of people that I met along the way that have been super helpful. Like we're doing here, you know, like this helps me get the word out, you know, and like, and I a lot of that really only occurs with like the face to face, you know, like you can see me on the internet or whatever, and you're like, I don't know this dude, so like, why am I going to come, you know, spend my weekend, you know, I don't know anything about these people or this guy, so like,
There's potential that could become a Dent guy event. There's a lot of Dent guys with the guns and extra money.
Extra money.
Dude. Yeah. I mean, so there's gaps that I want to bridge, and the automotive gap is actually one of them.
Yeah.
Because we are all a lot more similar than I would say a certain group of people would like to let us all believe. You know, we have more in common, and our spaces have more in common, and we don't have to be afraid of intermingling for, you know, not getting as much reach as we used to get on a social media platform, for instance. You know what I mean?
So I think one of the questions, and it's a really good point to interject right here, is like that this isn't just for, because I'm not military, I'm not law enforcement, never been, don't pretend to be. I'm just a guy who wants to know how to use this better and defend myself and my family and those around me.
Because it's a part of our culture. It's a part of our country.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's my interest in going to them. But for someone else who has never been to one of these, should they feel intimidated if they're just an average dude and like looking in the window, you're thinking these are all SWAT, military, law enforcement guys? Should they feel that at all, or should they feel welcome to come?
Well, if they don't, then there's a gap in coverage and something that I need to do. But, you know, I can say it live and here that, like, anybody who has, like, you know, if not some baseline firearms, you know, like, you need to have basic firearms safety skills. I generally email everyone that I don't know that signs up for the event, and I have a questionnaire that I send, you know, just like, hey, like, have you have any EMS, or what's your background essentially, you know, like, and then, you know, what's your firearms experience? And there's, you know, a range of, like, you know, hey, I shoot with my wife, or hey, I do this, and, like, you know, I can get a gauge for, like, hey, you will get the most out of this event if you start in this class and move to this class. So we'll touch on a couple things that you spurred. So one of them, the key, like, when we're looking for these courses, and you know this, you look for the word open enrollment. So in an open enrollment course means that, like, you do not have to be a law enforcement officer. You do not have to be, like, an active military member. You don't have to be anybody special to come to this event or class. So you look for open enrollments. A lot of times you'll see some instructors and they'll say LE only, you know, like, and those are courses that are not open enrollment. Those are for law enforcement only. But Low Country Range Days is an open enrollment course. I will send you an email, and you'll have to answer some questions, and I got to get a feel for, like, one, I want you to be safe. Two, I want you to have a good time and a good experience. And so, like, if you've never, you know, had any kind of open enrollment firearms training like this, you know, Chris Size Love's vehicle class is probably not a good place to start. You know, like, it's just going to be a lot at one time. So it would be better to start you out in, like, Sam Houston's rifle, essential rifle, which is basically like a rifle 1 class, you know, and you get to spend a day with Sam, and then, like, hey man, you do well in that class, and Sam's like, he's good to go. Move on over, and we're going to do some positional shooting on cars, and we're going to have a good time. Or, you know, like, I've tried to create a lot of different flavors for training, so, like, there's a little bit of something for everybody. If you're a pistol guy, there's actually 3 pistol classes this year. So one of the new additions is Raul Martinez and his company Rogue Methods, and they basically teach, like, it's called close contact gunfighter, but it's essentially like, if you're a concealed carry person, you probably have some preconceived ideas of, like, should you have to pull your gun on a person in a one-on-one scenario where it's up close? Like, you might have some preconceived ideas about how that's going to go. And this would be a course for you to figure out if you're accurate or you have some room to grow. And, you know, and Raul's really good about, you know, like, dispelling of, like, this is how you think it's going to go, and this is, you know, what kind of space you actually have to work with. And then, you know, he has some stimulation pistols. These are guns that shoot, like, it's like, you know, you pull the trigger and it goes bang, but it's like a little pellet gun. And so, like, you'll do some live fire sim training one-on-one. So it's certainly intense, and it's not a good first class. Yeah. But that was one of the critiques last year, was, like, there was a lot of entry-level courses, And so I try to listen to the course critiques from last year, and guys were like more advanced classes. And so we have some baseline classes. We kept Jared Seagraves doing the D5 handgun, foundations. So like I think entry level is like, it is a fundamentals class.
Yeah.
And there's always a big discussion of this kind of stuff on the internet as far as like tactics and fundamentals. And like, really it's like, and this is some of my opinion and whatever, the internet's a scary place to have to exist, but fundamentals cannot be stressed enough. And even when you graduate to like higher level courses, you're just doing fundamentals,
Sure.
either applied or a higher level of fundamental training. Like this like tactic stuff is like, we're way down the road if we're talking tactics, like where, you're setting up like an L-shaped ambush or something like that. Like this, not even close. Like, so we have a tier of training that so like if you're new to it and you want to wade in, like I have a place where I can plug you in and you can feel comfortable and you can spend the whole weekend with good people and learn a lot, and take a lot away from it and not have any reservations about, getting hurt or being in a dangerous position. Like my job is to make sure that like we run a safe event and we can have an event the following year, and so there's, therein lies the questioner, like, hey man, I'm going to send you an email. Let's talk about it. Let me, if you're not exactly sure where to begin, let me guide you, get you somewhere, and like have you come out and see what this is all about. And I think that the community style event is actually a better place to begin because you can come out and train with two different instructors on the same weekend. You could train two different disciplines as well. You could train a rifle and a pistol, or you could choose to be like, I know how to shoot a handgun. I really need some time with rifle. And you can try this instructor and that instructor and be like, oh, I really like, this instructor for this reason. And, that instructor was good, but like, I really want to go down the rabbit hole with this guy. You can look up his company and you can see what other courses he has to offer. Like, wow, he really taught pistol jam up. I wonder what his rifle class is like, and go take rifle. Or like, hey, I heard this guy teaches this other different kind of class, and that sounds interesting to me. So like, it is a, I feel like I'm just like the curator, like I bring in a group of guys. I offer, like what I think is like not only like good classes to take, but like good teachers. I know you and I were talking about this offline earlier, like just because you may know a subject matter or have a passion for it, like, well, probably not. If you have a passion for it, you can probably be a good teacher at it. But like just because you do doesn't mean you can teach.
Yeah.
So like these guys I have all trained with personally and have seen that like not only do they know the course material, they know how to equate that knowledge to you in a way that is absorbable. And they're speaking from a zone of experience that like the why is there, like why is this guy teaching this?
I've never been to a civilian firearms training. It sounds like to me the special thing about what you do is you have a bunch of different teachers.
Yep.
So is it because it seems like if you go to a training, it's just one
company.
Yes. So
and you might be there with them for 2 days or 3 days or even just a day. It just depends on what course you sign up for at what company.
Yeah.
And so this, I bring in a bunch of different companies and you get to choose when you buy your ticket, there's 3 choices that you can make, like 1, 2, and 3. And so it's kind of like your hierarchy of like, hey, this is what I want number 1. This is what I want number 2. And like, should you come in and like, those are all full, you get a 3rd choice and you'll get one of your 3 choices. We're very early in the sign up process. So anybody who signs up now is going to get 1 and 2. If I don't know you, I'm going to email you and we're going to find out, like that, even if you haven't had any experience, like it could just be like, hey, like my grandpa, like pulled the trigger of a shotgun while I was standing in the field when I was a kid, like we can get you there. But like, I just want to know. So Friday, we get together for dinner. Man,
Still trying to make it through the schedule.
That's another thing. Like my life's such a crazy, like, meandering path, and then like when it's like, you know, like, tell me about your event. I'm like the worst at segues and digressions or whatever. But any rate, so Friday we get together for dinner. We do a little bit of stop the bleed training, and then the next day we get online with our chosen instructors, and we do an 8-hour training day, and it's split up into 4-hour blocks. So Saturday and Sunday are full training days. We'll kick the morning off with a safety brief, and then we'll get into our classes. We'll train for 4 hours, and then we're going to take a break. I'm going to provide lunch. During the lunch break, sponsors are going to come out with some of their toys, and we'll be able to take like about an hour or so and shoot any guns or look through any optics, and, you know, get some hands-on time at the booths. And we're going to change the format up for that a little bit. We're going to have everybody over on the big range this year, so that like while we're at lunch, like we're basically like in pit lane for booths.
Nice.
You know, the idea of last year just didn't, you know, we ended up culminating in that one area, and it was just kind of like you didn't know what you didn't know. But so full training days, Saturday, Sunday, and then on throughout the weekend, I like to find a way, since it's a community event, like there's got to be somebody that we can give back to and help out. Last year we gave back to the Sua Sponte Foundation, which goes to the 175 Ranger Regiment in Savannah. And this year, while I was out at SHOT Show, I got to meet a couple. They work for Warriors Heart Foundation, and gosh, man, words are hard. Warriors Heart is the charity this year, and what they do is they supplied education for folks who were trying to get sober, having problems with PTSD, and who are active duty or law enforcement or you know, first responders. So, you know, interesting story is that they came by the booth and they wanted to, you know, thank the company that I was working for, you know, for, you know, giving a donation to their company. They were like, they wanted to remain anonymous. So like, we just wanted to come by in person and say thank you. And I was like, oh, tell me about who you are. And, you know, and so they started schooling me up on Warriors Heart and Frontline Healing Foundation. Sorry, Jordan. But like, turns out like we're all standing there and we all realize that we've all been sober for a stretch of time, you know, and it was just a really, really cool interaction. And like, that part of my life has been such a huge, like, page turner for me. And it to me, like, makes the Low Country event make even more sense of like why to do it and why to press it, is so that, you know, like we can raise money for these groups that are going out and helping, you know, all our people that put foot to ass, or, you know, or help out our communities. And then whenever they are in need, they get left behind. So it's super partial to me. So we'll, while the weekend's going on, be selling tickets to the raffle. The companies that are coming and sponsoring will be, you know, we're going to reach out to a lot of folks to donate products to put on the table to drive ticket sales. And last year, man, we gave away everything from one of the crazy Vortex laser rangefinders. We gave away some primary arms scopes. You won a chassis to...
I won a Daniel Defense D5 chassis.
Yeah, Delta 5 chassis.
And then I won a Haley strategic belt.
That's right.
I won...
Matt kicked in hard, man.
I did.
Yeah.
I dropped some coin on that, but I came out ahead. And
Yeah.
then I won a few other little things too. I'd have to go through my photos, like small stuff, mag pouches and stuff. But
so I try to do a lot in the weekend. So yeah, it's like, you know, like, what is Low Country Range Days, man? It's a lot of things, but I mean, like at the base of it, you know, it's an open enrollment training event, and you know, there's the community based aspect, but you know, and I try to pack in a lot of value as far as like, you know, the dinner with everybody on Friday night, you know, charity raffle to try and win some swag. There's T-shirts that we give out. We do T-shirts, laser mags, patches, stickers. You know, like there's goodies, man. And yeah, lunch is provided as well. So I'm gonna feed you.
Can I ask a question?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I were to go to this, I feel like I'm a pretty average guy. I'm asking about gear. Okay,
Yeah,
so
what do you
like
need?
I have a couple AR-15s with slings on them. I would say probably most people that have an AR-15 don't even have a sling on it.
Yeah.
I have iron sights. I have a bunch of mags. I don't have a bunch of stuff though. Like I don't have all this
All
stuff.
the gizmos and
I don't have a
stuff.
belt. I have a pistol. I don't,
Yeah.
what is if you're going to come to this and want to get the most out of it, what do you need to have?
So,
A lot of people are going to want to write.
want to know that.
Yes, so that they can show their wives why they have to spend all this money.
That is
I gotta have all this,
that is the $1 million
Donnie
question.
said, I gotta get it.
Yeah.
like minimum.
At a
Talking
minimum.
minimum.
Man, so there's a wide range of stuff. So like, if you want to get into it really hard, you can get into it for little money. And so I brought some stuff. Boom. So hopefully this comes out on camera. This is the first belt I ever had.
Hold it like
right about here.
This camera right here.
So
Like close to you,
oh yeah.
because it's gonna focus on your face.
All right, so this is the first belt I ever had, and I made it myself in the Paraloft at work. I took and robbed this Cobra buckle off of some gear. It was not military gear, and it was definitely free for the taking. But and I sewed this up because I wanted to start training, and I hung a holster on it. And so like, and I got a lot of work done just starting out here, to where now like we see. See ya. Matt's belt here on the table that has a lot of accoutrement, but I would say
It's a lot of cell phone pouches.
Yeah.
I would say at a minimum, you need a belt. Sturdier than that fabric would be better. You need to be able to hold some magazines on your person. So he's got 2 plastics here. So like I would say at least 2 pistol and at least 1 rifle. 3 is an A+ answer for sure. You need to be able to hang a holster off of it. A leg strap could be a bonus. Depends on if that's your jam or not. But so even if you don't go outside the waistband bit, like let's say like you're hey man, I'm a concealed carry guy and that's how I roll. Like okay, cool. So you can go simple. So like I have here, this is a belt from Blue Alpha Belts. This is a very inexpensive belt to get, but that stiff webbing definitely makes it super easy to hold up your concealed carry rig. And you can run this guy, inside the waistband and still work your course that way. There's no reason that you can't do that.
So a belt, a holster.
A belt, a good quality holster, no leather, none of those like weird half holsters either. Like you've seen the ones where it just goes on the trigger. That's a no-go too, because you need to be able to draw and re-index the holster.
Do you have a gear list?
So every class has a pack out list on the website. So like,
And every class is different. Okay.
yep, every class is different. So like we can kind of work through like, so say you're doing Raul Martinez's close contact gunfighter. Your setup's going to look more like this, the concealed carry. You're doing John Dufresne's, pistol on the move. Could you do this? Sure. Are you going to have more fun if you had the full belt setup? I believe you would. So if you want both and you want to justify it to your wife that you need both, sign up for both those classes. And, like, bam, you're just winning all day.
So we can just go to the website, look at the classes, and look at the gear list, basically?
100%.
Okay.
And then there's lots of different flavors, as far as like, Matt sets his belt up, his way. This is my Blue Force belt. It's set up, You know, like I have like all my different pouches that have, you know, their specific job, role, or purpose. And so there's just always more ways to skin the cat.
So can I ask you all this? I feel like in the military, everything was like vest based.
Yeah.
And I feel like law enforcement are going to more vest based setups. Why are y'all having
belt-based?
belts?
So, I mean, there's, you know, and I've kind of come across this recently, like there's people that like to fight from carrier or people who like to fight from belt. And some of that's either unit dependent or it's even like personal, like this is what works best for me and I feel fastest or the most comfortable with doing this method. I think when it comes to the civilian space, me speaking for myself, it was easier for me to justify buying a belt and stuff to go on a belt than it was to like, I'm going to go buy a plate carrier as a concerned citizen. Now then, where I'm at today, like I have multiple belts, plate carriers, helmets, night vision. I've stepped across the threshold and I've not looked back, and I just don't judge myself anymore for what I want to have.
So
It's all business expense now.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Matt's going to start
So
a new business tonight.
if you really want to ascend to the
Firearms.
highest level of justification to your spouse, you turn it into a business. And you just say, honey, it's right off expense. Don't even worry about it. It's okay. It's just...
So the class I did in Palm Bay with Jared, that was a pistol only class.
Yeah.
And there was a guy in that class that was
I know where you're going with this.
board shorts and flip flops.
100%.
Now,
Don't come to Low Country in flip flops. It's sandy as all get out. You'll have a miserable day.
absolutely, that's what I was going to say. Like even the environment wouldn't dictate you wearing flip flops there. I mean,
And that guy, I will just a disclaimer for the interwebs. That guy had come the day before and was in full shoes and everything, and like had established that he had some solid fundamentals and baseline skills. Spoke with the instructors after the fact and said, "Hey, I have this idea. This is how I walk around 90% of the time. I live in South Florida. Can I kit out like this?" And like, yeah, like we watched that guy run an appendix holster in some like Lululemon shorts and straight up thong flip flops like a unit.
Yeah.
And it was impressive.
He was proficient. He showed proficiency before. He didn't just show up to
Yeah,
a
he
class,
was
his
just
first
like,
class.
Sup? I'm in socks and flops. Let's get it on.
But also, I mean, we got a lot of rain that class. I mean, it rained like the whole class almost, and it flooded, and I wasn't running through 4 inches of water at that class, and so maybe his shoes were wet the day prior, and he wore the flip flops. But at his, it's a big sandy base. Maybe there's some grass in there now. But
It's better now because I mean we had just so this space that we train into was created for the event, and we're even going to improve upon the space from last year. Like one of the critiques was just that the pistol bays were too close together and made instruction hard. So like we're literally going to turn the 2 pistol bays into 1, and we're going to go a little bit further in the woods and mow some more trees down and create a whole nother pistol bay.
wow.
So yeah, we just got through talking about doing that, and like, so we're going to do that, and camping. We're going to have camping this year as well. So the big front lawn in front of the hangout barn, like that's going to be opened up for tent camping, or if you have if you get like an overland vehicle and you're all rigged out, you could come car camp. But I'm going to bring in some shower and like, familiar with like Royal restrooms? Any of those?
It's like a little
Yeah.
It's like
Air conditioned.
Yeah. So we're going to bring in some restroom and shower trailers.
Oh,
That's nice.
There's a couple showers and there's a restroom there at the barn. There's it was like a spa for that little spot.
But that's a 10-minute drive from the range.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big property.
Yeah, that is kind of.
So off I-95, what exit is this? off of?
Oh, that's a really good question, and I should know it. But the address to the range is on the website. So if you go to lowcountryrangedays.com, everything is there. All the information. It's very well placed, and it would be a lot easier to take in instead of all of my digressions of like, this is what we're going to do here, and then we go there, and then there's this, and then like it sounds probably like a lot. But I would say like going to the website would be wonderful. There's pictures of last year, so you can kind of see like not only like the courses and the descriptions, but like the people like doing some things. There's a gallery, so you can get an idea of like how people are dressed, how people are kitted out, like what's the vibe.
So what I was kind of leading with the guy with flip flops is like when I go to shoot at my local range here, this is what I run. And usually it's because I'm there all day, and to wear a plate carrier all day, whether or not it's weight or just heat, is just heavy, and it'll just wear you out. And so if you just think of like levels of progression, I'm not at flip-flops, which is the bottom, but I'm also not at a plate carrier and
Wearing a helmet.
loaded out. And
Right.
So like I'm still focusing on the fundamentals and building the fundamentals of shooting. And as I progress through that fundamentals of shooting, then I can start adding and upgrading my kit to. So last time we shot with plate carriers, and because that's changing your sling length now, and that's changing your shoulder pocket a little bit, and that's changing where you keep your magazines or
Everything.
or just how you transition and what you're hitting. If I'm drawing a mag now, I'm hitting my plate carrier, and so like
And exactly like how much do I have enough room on my sling to accommodate, like wearing a vest?
So if it's your first time shooting or going to an event, and you showed up with all that stuff, I mean, it could almost be overload, right?
It's way too much.
And so you would want to kind of progress into it.
Yeah.
And just up, those are all upgrades, and you should probably just get, so like what I have, I wouldn't say it's minimal, but it is. It's a place to store my gun when I'm not shooting it. I can safely holster it and hands-free. It's a place where I can store my magazines. I have multiple magazines because I can't shoot one mag and run back to my truck and load another magazine. So you want to have a place to have at least 3 magazines so you can stand there while the instructor's teaching and do drills and have enough ammo before you have to go replenish.
But even if you do the concealed carry route, like you have 1 in the gun, and then you can put 2 in your pants pockets. It is a bit course dependent, but like there's also like you said, like maximum enjoyment. Is it as comfortable to put the 2 pistol mags or a rifle mag in the back pocket of your pants, or is it more comfortable to put it on a $25 S-Tag Kiwi mag carrier? It's just like some of the stuff is just not that expensive. Like I think that a lot of times guys will go look and shop for gear, and they look at like the top shelf. Like you don't have to start there. Like if you're a buy once, cry once guy, and like and this is a hobby that you feel confident you're going to be in for a while, then knock your socks off, man. Go to the BFG website, start from point A and go to point B. But if you're doing economical stuff, like find yourself a budget belt and, start there, get a couple, mag carriers, a good holster. Holster would be a place that I would probably put the bulk of my money, as far as like, if I'm going to get cheap on anything, the thing that holds the boomstick, probably wouldn't go economical there. I would, I don't want any mishaps happening there. That's
the sling. I mean, all these are kind of like weapons management and safety too. Like the sling. I mean, even when you're not shooting, the sling helps you. It aids in your shooting stability. But even when you're not shooting, it's a place that you can relax the weapon and be hands off to
take a break.
Wipe your eyes. Whatever you're doing, and so it's not like it's tactical per se. It's just that it's more of like safe. And when you're on the range for 4 hours, it's kind of essential. If you didn't have a sling,
Yeah, and you can get them really simple. Like,
Yeah.
this is just like the basic Blue Force gear sling. You know, like it has this friction tab. So this is pretty much this is close to the issue one for the Marine Corps. But like, you know, you have the slider tab that gives you a little bit more room to play with, and then like you can tighten it up. A lot of people feel like that function is for like, you know, pulling it up higher, closer into your body, but like you were alluding to, like it helps you create a stable shooting platform. I know that Sam goes over it in his rifle class, so you probably definitely got that tip.
And Chris's too. Chris's
Yeah.
is
Oh yeah, whoa.
yeah.
Chris is Mr. BFG, so like he's definitely like the sling and the stable shooting platform. Like he's like, that is the fifth point of contact is the sling, and like whenever you get schooled up on that, like where you're like, oh, it's got a tensioner so that you could climb a ladder or whatever and do something tactical. It is a ability to increase or decrease the wobble zone, you know, like when you're taking a shot. So it's a safety tool, and then it's also a tool to improve your shooting. And so, but yeah, so those would be, that'd definitely be, sling's a minimum requirement for certain. Could you imagine like trying to stand out there all day and hold your rifle?
Heck no. Heck
Oh
no.
God.
Heck no.
So that's like $45 that you definitely want to spend.
Yeah.
But I would bet money that most AR-15s in people's houses do not have a sling.
Oh, it's not even a debate. That is an assured, that's an assured thing. So like you probably already have, like an M&P, like cool, come out, run that thing, see how it works. But like, spin your, you got the Magpul sling.
Yep.
I mean, you can pick that up at, I don't know if Dick's has it anymore, but like Bass Pro Shops.
Bass Pro's got them, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of this stuff is not that hard to get. Like, you may not get the stuff that you keep for the rest of your life, but like, you could get started.
Yeah. So talk about weapons as far as what you basic need for a weapon system, pistol and rifle.
Well, pistol, man, a Glock. One, Glocks are very inexpensive, and two, Glocks always work. So I think that is it's a simple pistol platform too. So I think it's a really good place to start. Glock 19, for me it was a 17, but now I think it's like 45s or 47s. But basically a 9mm Glock handgun. You cannot go wrong starting there. Are there better handguns? Arguably, sure. Some guys do like the Smith & Wesson M&P is definitely catching on in some popularity. Guys have been able to get some pretty slick triggers in those. But like, if you're just getting into it, like I wouldn't worry about any of that stuff. And like, even if the Glock doesn't end up being your favorite handgun of all time, like I own some pretty slick pistols now, and like my favorite gun to shoot at the range is my Glock 17. Like it's also the one that I carry on me. Like if I'm going to Costco and I'm taking my family, like I'm carrying my Glock 17. One, I know it's not going to go off on, it's not going to go off and cause a scene because it's reliable. And then if I need
the 17 the full size?
Yeah. So I've got it.
That's one.
That's yours or his?
Yeah, that's mine.
Yeah. So mine is so all guns been cleared. Just double check that. But so for me, like I'm running a Glock 17. I found an agency slide for someplace real cheap because I like the way that their optic mounting system works. So I'm running a Glock 17 with an Acro P2. I have not had any issues with this. It comes with the sights too. It was awesome. I'm running the Mod Light, Pistol Light. For me, man, Aaron Cowan says a thing like, if it gets sights, it gets lights. I'm a big fan of that philosophy. A lot of times, I mean, your experience when the guy was knocking at your back door, like, was it dark?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So,
I had to follow him outside. Then
weird stuff generally doesn't happen in the daytime, so it generally happens at nighttime. So, like, being able to have a light that turns on and provide vision, it would definitely be a benefit. And then My frame was stippled at one time by Garrett Landers Weapons. Other than that, like,
What do you mean by stippled?
so stippled is where we take the original like Glock situation, which can be kind of slippery, and
The plastic handle.
the plastic handle. Yep, and we texture it so that it grips a little bit more like sandpaperish.
So this
you
is
know.
unstippled, and that's heavily stippled.
Did your brother did one?
My brother's been doing stuff.
Did he do this?
No, I had that done.
And then I
back
think
then.
this is super important to show too. So even though this is what would be considered kind of like a Gucci Glock, like you can go super simple, and like if your pistol doesn't have enough traction, you can just put some hockey tape. The fancy stuff in the industry is goon tape or whatever.
That's
but
what
like,
that is.
so I mean, yes, but I mean like it's whatever. You could put some. There's another company. What's it? The
Tessa tape.
Talon grips.
Talon, yeah.
Yeah. It's like a little sticker system that comes, and you can put those panels on and get you a little bit more traction. But like,
You don't think about it until you're a couple hours in, and your hands are sweaty,
yeah.
and the gun, everything, your whole grip changes, right?
But
One thing we were talking about real quick when
Yeah.
we were talking about what gun should we take, something to consider. That one of the events I did, there was 2 guys running Colt 1911s, 45s. Well, fantastic, but it's more expensive, and then the mag capacity is 7+1.
Yeah.
So in order for them to even this gun here, even my Glock 43X right here holds 15 rounds.
Yeah.
That's 20+ rounds. So he's got 3 magazine changes where I'm still in 1. So which means if I'm running 3 magazines on my belt, that's 60 rounds. You know how many magazines that guy has to have to be the equivalent? So he had all these, he had just like his whole waistband was just metal 1911 mags. So just from ammo capacity, you should really consider like maybe this is a good gun for home defense because I love it. It was my grandfather's gun, but maybe it's not the best gun for the range. And being in a class setting where there's 10, 15 people that have to wait for you to go refill mags because you only got 7 rounds. You know, that's probably not the wisest one because they're not going to wait for you.
Well, and then the other thing that, sometimes, like I have this, experience in my life, but some things I do have to learn the hard way. And so taking a gun that only holds 8 rounds to a class and then being like, man, this kind of sucks. I probably won't do this again.
Yeah.
But so those are some other things too. Like I answer all the questions that come through the Instagram page, the email. Like I'm the dude. So like if you have a question about the event or like, hey man, I'm thinking about doing this, I could offer you my advice, or my best opinion as far as like like I wouldn't go that route. You might not have the best time. But some early suggestions would be like, if you're new to this, like you do shoot often, like bring the rifle or the pistol that you know the most, so that while you're in the class, you're not fumbling with the gun or the new optic or, I just got this gun. I don't know if it really works that well. Like these aren't the places that you want to learn this. You want to know your equipment to a degree before you come. That way you can take in the information about the skills you're trying to acquire. So like, that's another thing of just like keeping the thing. And like, we're coming together to meet people that are like-minded, and then 2, to gain skills and learn something. Some of these events, like they'll do kind of like because some people have asked about the different formats, like where they'll do like a round robin where they'll like go to this. Everyone would go to all 6 classes, but they would be in each class like for 2 hours. And in my opinion, like you don't really, it's too brief. You're not really walking away like. After low country, like you're going to walk away with some better pistol skills. You're going to walk away with some better rifle skills. You won't walk away with like a snippet of everybody's whatever. So like keep the thing. Don't get focused in on the gun. Like, have some stuff that you've used before. You know it works, and then come and be able to take in knowledge. If you have some questions about how to make that, how to get the best bang for your buck, hit me up. Definitely reach out.
So just as far as like normal firearm stuff, would you carry a Glock 17 is what you carry every day?
So, I mean, I have 2 guns that I carry. I carry a 17 when my attire allows for it. And then if it doesn't, I carry a Glock 48, which is about to be replaced. Now that, so just clear.
And what's a 48?
So a 48 is basically the equivalent of a Glock 19, but it's a slim version. So it's a little bit closer to, for me, like if I have a problem with the gun, it's generally like how far the grip is will start printing on my shirt. Or if I'm wearing some lighter weight pants, just trying to get enough tension to pull it close to my body. So the 48 being like a slimmer pistol, but I still get like a little bit longer recoiling slide. Like to me, it's still shootable. And then,
is that considered compact or subcompact?
I would say it's considered compact.
And all of it, if you're just listening, all of his pistols have lights on them.
Yeah. I have wanted to put an optic on this gun. I'm a big red dot guy on pistols. There just weren't any that like I really, really liked. I'm just not about the holosun life. So like that's the other like slim line dot that's really popular. But Aimpoint just came out with the new Koa setup, and like I already have like a 48 on order with the Koa, and as soon as it comes in, that'll get replaced, and that'll be what I carry in place of this gun. So yeah, so I mean, so whatever I carry is usually like clothing dependent. So like
that clips on your belt outside of your pants.
Nope, this goes inside the waistband. So this is a Safariland's Incog. It's like their collaboration with Haley Strategic. So I run the 48 in this with it's a Streamlight, and that generally works for pretty much anything that where I can't get away with the 17. And sometimes where I'm going is also dependent upon like what pistol I carry. I'll get into it like that as far as like, if we're going to a really big box store and I got my whole kit and caboodle, like both my kids and my wife with me, and like, my most prized possessions, I'll carry a gun that I would make a longer shot with. So if if you're in Costco and you're like, man, that's a really long aisle, or like it's a long way to the other end of that store, like, do I really want to be carrying a Glock 42 380 with some plastic sights on it to make that shot? It's probably not my,
What do you like? What determines clothing wise or setup wise? When would you go to the bigger pistol?
So I mean, generally like pants or belt, like if I'm in shorts and like even like some of those like kind of like your hybrid like khaki size shorts, like it can be kind of hard to, even if you've got a good belt, to get the kind of support that you need to so like if I'm going to Costco and it's summer and I want to carry a 17, I'm just going to throw on a pair of like good old Costco stretch cargo pants, and I'll just change my clothes if I want to carry a certain gun. I'll just change my clothes so I can carry that gun. And that's just me. That's my jam. But if not, I always try to have at least I always try to have a pistol on. If not,
do you ever use a fanny pack situation? Do you, Matt?
I have one. I have it set up, but I think I would probably fumble it more than I would just going straight from
appendix. For sure.
Yeah, I just try to carry on me if I can. If I go off body, like if I'm at the gym, like that'll be a point where like I have to go off body.
Dang, so you're carrying a weapon in the gym.
Yeah.
Well, in theory.
What's the?
Hypothetically.
I mean, maybe not.
And sometimes it could be more obvious too. Like, I mean,
I think every time now that like I'm in the grocery store and I see like a modern male and he's got a fanny pack on him and he's across
There's a gun in there.
It's across his chest. I'm like, that dude's carrying a gun. I literally
sure.
saw a dude in it was like Target or something. I forget. I was with my wife and like Cat Daddy had a Haley Strategic flat pack. So if you don't know what that is, it's a very tactical backpack. But it's also like of the echelon, like you have to know what you're looking at. Like I'm like, that's a flat pack. And it's underneath the grocery cart. Like he put it in the grocery cart, like underneath. Like I'm like, did my dude like bring like his 300 blackout folder like to the grocery store? Like are we in a heightened sense of security? So I think honestly, like having it on my person is the lowest vis, that I can do. If I cannot do a pistol, I do a full size knife, and like I also always like to have a flashlight with me, a light source. Even if you're going out in the daytime, you go to the back of a store, the lights go out, it's dark. Of course I do have a cell phone, but sure would be nice if like I didn't have to like hold my phone, and that light really doesn't do jack of all.
Yeah.
So, and this isn't the brightest of lights, but it is the light that I carry the most. Just the Surefire Stiletto, I think is what it's called. But it is slim and it goes in a pocket. Like I really do like this mod light. It is super punchy and it would be definitely disarming if like. And it's also like layers of escalation. Like if someone's being weird, and they get really close to me, like, you could come out and shine a flashlight in their eyes and see what their initiation level is. Just, it's a tool that you don't have to like go for the thing that makes it a really serious situation like right away.
Sure.
But this is all case dependent. And then other EDC considerations, medical. I usually like to try and have like this little pocket tourniquet. I got thick thighs, so sometimes it's hard to like sneak this in the old skinny jeans all the time. Like I do like varying levels, like it's kind of like clothes dependent, but like this is at least like in my truck, like, and I also have like this is like a Blue Force gear, like small, I forget what, I think it's the Nano model, but like it's basically a stop the bleed kit. And I try like in the back of my truck, I have like a full blowout kit that has like multiple tourniquets and multiple, like medical stuff. So that like that stuff's super handy.
Yeah.
Could be the difference for me or someone else. But yeah, I mean, like, I try to always have like a light source and something other than my fists on my person, and for my next trick, I'm going to get my wife to do the same.
Good luck.
I know. But I mean, like,
This is funny. So my wife, she walks like in the neighborhood, dude. She walks like 5 miles a day. Like that's her main source of fitness. And if me and her go for a walk, I always have some kind of weapon.
yeah.
I feel like it's just like a man thing to, it's like, well, if I'm going to go somewhere, I'm going to have some kind of weapon. And I'm like, she's walking and I'm like, hey, do you have some kind of weapon? She's like, no. I'm like, Jen.
Yeah.
You have to have something.
I literally
Well, how
did
could you
this.
just go walking around with no weapon?
Isn't
women
it weird
don't-
that the more vulnerable party doesn't feel the need to...
That's what I'm saying.
Like-
what in the world? I don't understand.
No, I literally did this.
If I'm a bad guy, Donnie, meaning, and I'm trying to do harm, I'm probably going to go for your wife,
Yeah.
not for you.
Probably avoid me, huh?
Who has nothing on her,
Yeah.
and you've got all this,
Mr. Thick Thighs.
all this kit. Yeah.
Well, dude, like, yeah, and like, it's funny because she can always see it coming. Like, whenever I'm like, where are you going? You're going to Target, huh? Okay. Well, and you're gonna take our daughter. Can you at least just throw it in your purse? Just put
Yeah.
And then there's generally a pretty good reason of like why I'm not going with them. Like I generally try to. We've got 2 kids now, and it's it's getting harder to go everywhere with my family. Like we have to do the divide and conquer more and more. So I mean, I'm learning as we go. So, but that's.
Are you carrying a round chambered whenever you have a gun on you?
Absolutely. It's not a debate for me.
Yeah.
I know that the internet likes to debate it, but like the last thing that I'm going to do, and if this is a debate in your mind, boy, do I have a course at Low Country Range Days for you. You come and take Raul Martinez's close contact gunfighter, and you let me know how it goes chambering that round before you get your stuff on a platter.
Okay, I got 2 stories real quick.
Oh yeah.
So first one is I don't have one I don't have a round chambered because I feel like you have to be at a heightened level of awareness, and I'm not there. So like I feel like I'm not being. I need to up my game if I'm going to have a round in the chamber. That's why I don't, because I don't want to be responsible for that round.
The other times that like when I find that I might feel weary about it is a gun that I don't know. But like I said about my Glock 17, like there are thousands and thousands and thousands of rounds through that gun. So like I know, like we have a history and I trust it.
Yeah.
So like I think too, like for some gun owners that say like, oh no, I don't carry one in the chamber, and it's probably because they don't spend a lot of time on range with their guns. And like the more you get acquainted and like you develop that bond with your piece, like that it's not going to do anything tricky to you. So like you feel like okay, like, and besides when you're out getting reps on the range, you chamber around and you reholster, and then boom, you pull and you go to work, and like you do another round of course of fire, and then you put it back in your holster, it comes back out, and you do that multiple times, so it doesn't become such a foreign feeling of having like a gun loaded on your person. But I think like you said, getting training like takes a lot of that like apprehension out, and it could just be one course that changes that perspective for you.
So the other thing I was going to say was, have y'all? I've lost fine motor skills before in a stressful situation involving a weapon, like when I was in the military, like people screaming, and I could not operate my hands. I couldn't even hardly operate my arms, and it was very disturbing. Like I've never experienced that since then. But just that, I'd heard of that, but I experienced it before. It's wild.
Like I know I'm very familiar with like the auditory exclusion. Like things are going on so chaotic that like it gets really calm and peaceful. There was a instructor that put some stuff out on the internet just a couple days ago, and was talking about how the way your brain works, and you can set yourself up for failure if you like. So it was a police officer, and he had drawn on a guy, and I might butcher the story a little bit, but like the long and short of it was that like not only had he drawn on the guy, like he was giving like really like aggressive, like commands to the dude, and then like the finger was on the trigger, and
whoops,
so he's already out. He's like he might even have like the slack taped up. All he's waiting on at that point is just like that final like brain synapse to say like pull the trigger. Like so you've already like put yourself in such a compromised position that like you've allowed less thought process to take place. And like if he would have still had his finger out on the slide, or even just like at a low ready or whatever, like there would have been more time to be like, oh, this occurred, now I'm going to escalate the situation. Or like, oh, he doesn't have a weapon on him, I'm not going to, use, lethal force criteria is not met, as Chris Sisler would say. So, I mean, but all that, comes back to like training, being comfortable with your weapon, and we see it. I see like the industry and the training community sees it a lot with like law enforcement people too, and that like there's a lot of emphasis put on like you do your annual qual and then you're good, but like getting actual like good training, like there's some gaps there. So it's not uncommon to even be in an open enrollment class and see like some of our law enforcement brothers that are like super initiated and take their job serious. They'll be online with you, and there will be some at Low Country Range Days. I know like Stephen was there last year. I'm sure he's coming back again this year. And last year there were two dudes from the 82nd came down. So we will have active law enforcement and we'll have active military like at the event, because like it's all the same,
Yeah, we were in the Haley one, had some SWAT guys.
That's right.
That were in there, and there was a school principal right next to them. I mean, it was very intermixed.
Yeah.
I got a couple questions. My brother, his wife is she's been wanting to carry more. She carries a 43X.
Yeah.
And she wants to attend. She might have already been signed up as of today.
Okay.
So she felt very intimidated. And she was like, I don't know if I want to do this. I'm out of my comfort zone. There's going to be a bunch of tactical dudes with beards there. Should I not go to this? And, what do you have to say to that?
I mean, like right away, I'm like super stoked, because like I think that it's awesome that like the family is a unit, and like you can't always. You guys travel for work, and all of you guys have kids, and like those are vulnerabilities, and like so I think that like it's awesome to hear that like a spouse like wants to like go the extra mile. I think it's badass, and so one, I'm super encouraged by it, and then two, like I'm immediately like, oh man, totally. So center with Jared, like start there, and then
her apprehension was like, well, I'm not really that good at shooting. It's like, well, that's not really the requirement. The only real requirement is to be safe.
Yeah.
Like that's really anything that no one's going to care if you're like the best shooter or the worst shooter, like on target, but they're going to care if you're safe or not and you're proficient. Like if you just bought that gun yesterday and you've never shot it and you've never shot a gun, you might want to hold off on this course, and you might want to get some range time prior, but be safe, know your weapon and know how to manipulate it and use it and what's safe or not. And that's really what anybody cares about.
So I know you get into jiu-jitsu stuff, and like your brother does too, correct?
No.
Okay.
No.
I didn't know.
My sons do.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Well, I was thinking, because if she generally, like sometimes it's like a family thing. Like if she does jiu-jitsu, then like she would dig, the Martinez course. But like if not, then just do the shooting on the move class with Duffy, or she could take the pistol class from Haley twice.
Yeah.
And like by day 2, like she's just gonna have more comfort, and like it's not like it would be wasted time. But like. The only reason I say this is because she's not going to want to go take a rifle 1 class, I don't think. She just wants to learn how to shoot her 43X. And like, yeah, definitely with Haley day 1, like, and if she's really like, ooh, that was super awesome, and like, and I'm ready to move on, or like, like I got a lot out of it yesterday, but like, I think I could do it again,
My recommendation was exactly that. Sign up for Jared's twice.
Yeah.
And from what I know of Jared and his comfort level, the way he can like make it very easy to attend, and it's not like he was very accommodating. And she won't be disappointed.
No, and like he brings out a really good squad. I'm interested to see who again. Like Ben Bergamini. I mean, like the guy that came out with him last year. Like. He's a phenomenal instructor too. That's on staff with them. Like, he teaches a lot of HK stuff too. Like it's like a lot of the guys get into a lot of different stuff. Like John Dufresne, like he's teaching pistol, but like the guy's a lights out night vision instructor. You know, Sam's a night vision instructor. Wealth of knowledge with that kind of stuff. Chris is like the CQB master. You know, like he's going to teach a rifle class, but like, you know, he's a shoot house wizard. So like, everybody's got they're good at a lot of things, but then they got their own specialties.
Yeah, Jared, who teaches the fundamental D5 handgun class, the one he taught that last year, and then immediately had to get on a plane to go to Switzerland to teach.
Yeah,
the Swiss. What was he?
They were like SWAT guys, I think.
SWAT guys, like that's his level of his that he can cover as far as his ability. Like you're not getting like he's just a basic guy. Like these are top tier guys. I always kind of like I speak in like, oh, these names, these are people you should know. Like literally like everybody who is at this event is like the like some of the highest level instructors like in the industry. Like, you know, they're very good at what they do, and then their specific role at the event is also like, you know, I invite them there to do because that they also have like really good leadership skills. Like as far as like, they're not only going to impart on you like how to use the gun, but you might learn something about yourself, or you know, gain some insight into just how to be a better person. They're all like really motivated people.
You got more questions?
I had a thought too, and then it went.
Yeah, I do. Some of them are kind of random.
We haven't talked about Scott Peterson. Scott's the only name I think that hasn't been mentioned. Scott's our long range instructor for this year. He's teaching a precision gas gun. So it's like the one in front of the table here is so this is like a large frame AR-10. So it shoots .308. It's got a stainless barrel in it with match ammo. I've seen this thing do like half an inch at 100 yards. And we'll like, I mean, I could shoot it to 8,000 easy. I think I shot it to just short of 900 a few weeks back at Alabama. I went out to help Scott with his NRL Hunter event, and I took my rifle along, and I was just there to help, but got to do a little bit of shooting. And so Scott's a phenomenal instructor himself. His background, he's AMU, Army Marksmanship Unit. He did a lot of time there, so like has some experience with competing and like, you know, performance of skills on demand under pressure type situation, and like how to get set up, how to get on target quick. So like whether you're like an LE dude, or let's just say like you're a guy who's going after a prize buck and like you like to carry a AR-10 or you're shooting hogs or whatever, like, you know, you might need to get set up on target pretty quick once you come upon, you know, whatever game you're stalking. So like that is the dude who will school you up on that. And like we only have about 600 yardage to work with at Low Country. We set up on the property is very extensive.
3,600 acres.
Yeah, it's huge. And there's a par 5. There's a 18-hole golf course on it. So we set up the long-range portion on one of the par 5 holes. So like you get a little bit of natural lay to the land, and it's not exactly like a lot of long ranges can kind of be guilty of being like bowling alleys where like all the trees are mobbed out and like you basically don't get any wind. With it being the golf course type setup, like you can get some left to right winds. It can be a little bit challenging. So it gives him the ability to, even though it's only inside of 600 yards, we make the target small. And so you're forced to make precise shots. And then you also get some ability to do wind calls, which is the real part of the game. But Scott's not only is he a phenomenal shooter, you know, he can regularly be found like kicking butt on like quantified performance trail, and but he puts on his own events, so he's a guy that gives back to the community on his own time, and as well as like you know, he's doing his teaching thing. He's taught some, you know, military units here and there, but like I've gone and taken a class from him, like as far as like getting information from point A to point B. He's like phenomenal at it. He's also from Alabama. He's an Alabama fan. We're from the same hometown, so like, you know, he's an all right guy.
Yeah.
I like him.
When it comes to, well, we didn't cover this real quick. When it comes to the rifle, if you're going to attend a course, what is a rifle setup you would recommend for a carbine class?
I mean, the basic, man, like, you know, like your gun's a good example, you know, sitting in front of you. Like you have a red dot optic, you have backup iron sights, and like, to me, like, you went really top tier on the Aimpoint T2 is probably never going to fail you. You could drop it off of a truck and drag it down the road, and it's still probably going to operate. So, like, I mean, you have a light, you have a red dot, and you have some backup sighting system. I think that's pretty much, and a sling, and that's pretty much all you need. You know, like, even like one could debate, you know, like, don't worry about like fancy rail covers or hand grips or whatever. If you get those and you like them, great. But it's not required. And like, and even a light's not required. Like, you just need to have a good serviceable rifle that you know works and you've tested it. It is zeroed. If you don't know how to zero a rifle, check that out on the internet before you come. Zero your gun and know that it operates and have a sling on it. And you're pretty much ready to rock.
Preferably 5.56
Yeah.
or 2.23.
Yeah, I would say 5.56. You know, and even the 308 for the precision gas gun, like having a big frame is not necessary. You can absolutely run a scoped carbine in that class. So in scoped carbine, I mean like a 5.56 gun shoots 2.23, and you just have a what we call a low power variable optic. The one on the back wall, are you able to grab that?
Yep.
Boom.
Safe.
Yeah, just dirty. So this is like it's a 14.5-inch Geisley upper. We have a primary arms 1 to 8. This is their PLX compact. Just got this, working with it so far. I really like it. But I've shot this to 500 yards already, like no issue. I have a backup sighting system up top with the little red dot up there, but that's not necessary either. You could do the whole course with just a scope and a rifle, and I think that this is also a pretty common setup for guys that like use these rifles for hunting. You know, you'd find a scope on that, so like you could definitely come out and do the precision gas gun course with this rifle. You could do Sam Houston's
Combat carbine.
No, that was Chris's class last year. This year, Chris is doing the vehicle course, the intro, which is going to be basically like vehicle positional shooting. It's going to be super cool.
Essential rifle. That was
Essential rifle with Sam Houston.
Yeah.
So yeah, you could come out and do essential rifle with Sam, and then you could shoot long range with Scott over on the par 5. You know, like if you've got multiple guns, if you're that kind of guy, like the only thing is it's not recommended as a bolt gun because it is a gas gun class, and there's some nuances to operating a gas gun that don't come with the bolt gun. I've actually found that I'm better at running gas guns than I am a bolt gun. But that's just a skills gap.
All right.
What else? There's got to be something I missed.
A couple more questions here.
We've got so much stuff on the table now. It's been a party.
Let's see. I'll just kind of run off a few, and you can answer whatever you see. What's the most common mistakes you hear about self-defense? What is the best weapon caliber for home defense? Should the whole family be trained? How do you feel about kids and guns? How often should you train? So pick your...
How often should you train? Man, it's definitely a perishable skill. But I know that like ammo is expensive. For me, like this is somewhat my trade. I try to go to the range like at least once or twice a week, and that's me. You know, like I try to put it on the books as far as like go to the range at least once a week, hit the gym at least 3 times a week. You know, and like I try to make that my schedule, but that does not work out very often with a wife, 2 kids, and like 3 different jobs. So I really like I generally end up making it about 2 to 3 times a month right now, along with like going to different events. So I still end up shooting quite a bit, but I really need to shoot more for me. So I would say like, gosh, man, like at least once a month, especially for like, I pay for a membership to an outdoor range, like financially, like, what I spend on dues, like I should be out there at least once a month to take part to like get the most out of it.
Yeah.
And then as far as like a perishable skill, it costs you absolutely $0 to dry fire in the safety of your home. Like, you can take your carry gun, clear it out, go to your prospective space in the house. Like, like I've heard guys do every kind of like different tricks. Like, for me, like I clear the magazine out of the gun. I'll verbalize it like the gun is clear. I'm gonna train, and then I have like my office is where I go, and I have like some small targets in there, and I'll try to do 15 minutes of dry fire, and I try to do that at least 3 times a week. Every day it only takes 15 minutes would be better, but I mean, like, to even just get more comfortable with the gun that you're carrying on a regular basis, like how often have you, like, especially if you're appendix carrying, like pulling your t-shirt and like pulling your gun, presenting it, and like finding a red dot or finding your sights, like those are perishable skills. If you've done it a lot, like, I mean, you notice, like, I'm sure, like, you go to the range a lot, you're super on, and then you have a couple weeks off and you come back out, like, it takes you a minute to, like, get running smooth again, but, like, you get there pretty quick. Well, if you went 6 months, it would take you maybe a week, So, like, dry fire is I think is the best answer for, like, training frequencies. So I would say try to dry fire as much as you can in a week. Go to your safe space in the house. That sounds awful to say, but
Halo Strategic has that 100-round workup where they just do 100 rounds. It's very effective for getting some range time in with only minimal 100 rounds. I would say also too, like, I mean, I've learned so much about my gear because you'll be at the range shooting and all of a sudden this thing falls off or it's not zero and you're like, why isn't it zero? Oh, it was loose.
Yeah.
So, like, if you're not familiar with your gear, then it's the more often you can train or even be dry firing or manipulating it in some way just to make sure vet the gear and make sure that it's working.
Can I have like a little swizzle of paper?
Yeah.
Like just like a little, just tear me off a little corner. Yeah. While we're here, for the people at home, show them a nifty little dry fire trick. All right, so all I did was just take like a corner of the notepad and just like created like a little piece of paper. So dry fire tip. So open your chamber up and like sit this guy in here. Kind of hard to do while you're on camera, but like, whoop, send the bolt home. So like it didn't go into battery. So now like whenever I do dry fire, I'll be able to like, safety on the trigger, but you'll be able to, the trigger will reset itself. So like you can pull from a holster, present your red dot, find your target, and then like you can pull the trigger and it'll reset. If you don't do that, obviously it just snaps and then you got to rack the slide. It's kind of a pain in the butt, but you can get more work done that way. That's a trick John really likes. You can set up multiple targets and like, pull from the holster, present one time, track to another target, and like, kind of crisscross applesauce. But that's a neat trick. I like that one a lot. It just improves your time. And then so what I'll do is I'll do that. I'll set a timer on my phone for like 15 minutes, and I'll pull and kill light switches in my spare room of the house for about 15 minutes, and that makes the biggest difference, especially to even like let's say I've been slacking, I've been traveling or whatever, I've been busy with kids, sick, whatever. Like, and I know I'm going to go to the range, let's say Friday, like I will try to make it a point to like dry fire like 2 or 3 days of that week before I go out so I can get the most out of the, 35 cents around 9mm. Actually, we're doing pretty good now. It's like 25 cents.
I used to go just randomly shoot at a gun range, and there was no reason, or I had no intention with what I was doing. And then after I started going to these training events, then you come home with drills that, for one, they're intentional for what you're doing, and then also you're not just dumping ammo and just literally throwing money at the end of the range. You're actually building a skill, or you're building those foundations.
Yeah, the key word there, because words are important, is intent. Like you have some intent with what you're doing, like pulling from the holster, like you're building your grip on the way out, you're feeling the trigger press, or you're just slapping it so that you know that your grip's good, you're watching for your dot to move, like you're doing target transitions. There's a lot of gain that's going on in that short little 15 minutes, like that may not seem like a lot, but if you did that and then you went to the range, you'd be like, oh wow, I was actually pretty decent today.
Yeah.
As opposed to if you just went out there cold. Safety with guns around the house. For me, what I do, I talk to my kids about the guns. Right now, I only have one that's old enough to understand. I keep my carry pistols in one spot in the house. She knows about it. She knows where they are. She knows it's like, it's not a space to like, these are not toys. You don't play with them. There's only one person that goes in there. If you find this drawer or this space open, what are you supposed to do with it? Like I close it. I also clear my guns out when I bring them home and I take them off my body. So I take that round out of the chamber. And then for the time being, like I don't, like they go in a toolbox and that toolbox is lockable. And my daughter's not strong enough to rack a slide anyway. It's not a concern at this age, but I just continue to try and educate my kids on them so that they're not a mystery. It's not a there's clarity there. Sure.
And
no curiosity. Like I've tried to eliminate the curiosity from my kids.
That's one thing I did is I told my kids, hey, anytime you ever want to touch a gun, handle my gun, anytime, just tell me and we'll do it right then.
I like that.
Just so that they don't feel like they have to sneak and go, explore themselves. It's like, no, anytime you want, we'll do it. We'll get them. No. Yes. Yeah. I always say yes. We'll get them out. Like no big deal. But we know we're not touching these without that, right? So.
I've done that with my kids since, especially my boys, they've had a form of pocket knife since they were like 2. They were dumb little wooden or plastic things, and I've slowly graduated them up because I never wanted them to have this curiosity of this thing I'm not supposed to touch.
Right.
They've always had access on some level to something, managed access, let's say, and built that up and given freedom as they've aged, and there's never been a curiosity. Yeah. Right. And I think that's important. One of my guys now is dealing with that with his daughter picking up a knife. I gave him a pocket knife for Christmas, and his daughter doesn't know what to do with it. And he's taking it away from her. And I'm like, I get that. But the other angle is, let's say, listen, if you ever want to touch it, come get me and we'll do it together. And I'll show you the right way to do it. I'll manage that interaction correctly. And then hopefully she'll get bored in 5 minutes, want to go play dolls again. And you just eliminate that curiosity out of them. And so it's like, oh, that's just a boring knife. I don't really care about that. If I want to see it, I'll get my dad. Hey, Dad, show me the knife.
Yeah, and I carry my kid on a regular basis, and I'm always carrying a gun. So, like, her leg touches it or whatever. Or, like, my son loves to, like, stick his foot, like, on the grip. So it's not like this is not a thing that I could avoid. Like, like, I always have a pistol with me pretty much everywhere we go. So, like, my daughter's like, oh, it's Papa's shoot gun, like, whatever. But, like, the other thing I wanted to say is that, like, this is not the way. This is just a way, like, and I'm not trying to say that, like, I'm an expert on any of this stuff, like I know I'm here and you guys have me as a guest and I run my own range event or whatever, but like ultimately, like I'm just a guy who has, been on his firearms journey. Like I've had a really good time with it and I've had a very good experience with it. And it's done a lot for me in my life. And I just want to share that with more people. And I think that if we do this more, like it can, I don't know. I just don't want the world to seem so small to those of us that find value in this. And then I think there's a lot of other people who feel similarly if we can reach them,
Sure.
And that's like food for thought. There's what else do we talk about? Kids, how often to train.
Caliber of round for home defense.
Yeah.
Man, I like my pistol for home defense. It's small. My house is small. It's tight. I know Chris would be like, "Why is your rifle not next to your bed, Donnie?" But like to me, it's just what I'm most comfortable with. And I live in a small area of town too. So like even if I had to step out front, like I'm not having to justify like 100-meter shot off my front door. I don't live on a rural area. I live in town in the city. So like I have walls of concern. So like I don't want to overpenetrate walls. So I use hollow point 9mm, and I use my pistol, the gun that I spend the most time with too. So like, yeah, that's next to the bed.
Yeah. You can get into shotguns too, and all that other.
I'm just not a shotgun dude. Yeah. It's just not. I just haven't made it down that road, and like it's another type of ammo. And I mean, I own 2 shotguns. I just don't shoot them often because I mean, when I got into guns, like I owned a lot more guns than I do now, and I've definitely streamlined it because I realized how much effort it takes to actually be proficient on a platform. Like, let alone like if you want to own a subgun like a PCC, like an MP5 or the SIG MPX, at least the MPX is a platform that's very similar to the AR-15. So like you kind of have some cross compatibility there. But if like then you go to like the AK, like that's a whole nother set of skills of like how to reload, how to manipulate, bolt guns, distance rifles, like they all have their own disciplines, and for you to be as comfortable as like what we were talking about earlier, like you need to have time with them. And so like for me, I try to narrow what I'm using and how many jobs do I got to be good at? You know, right now I got to be good at shooting like a pistol and a carbine, and like I'm getting into gas gun stuff. I'm having a really good time with it, and like I shoot it good. So it's fun. It makes little holes in papers that really long way.
One really important thing that I learned from the Haley class was, like in America, we love to be able to have the freedom to have guns, and we all want to go out and buy one, and if you have any kind of expectation to carry that or to use it at need one day, like necessity. Hopefully, we never have to. But then there's also this liability for you to know how to, or this responsibility to know how to use this gun. Because if you don't, then you're a liability. So like, it's great that you want to own this gun. Like that's a cool thing. But it's not just own it and put it in a safe and hope that the trigger goes bang when you pull it and the bullet goes where I want it to. Like you have to know that. And you have to be proficient with it and train with it. So like if you're gonna buy a gun, it's kind of like you have to assume, you have to sign the waiver or the contract that says I'm going to train with it to some degree, or otherwise you're somewhat of a liability if you don't.
And I like that about how Travis sets up his courses, at Haley. Like he brings that ownership, that responsibility aspect. Like he's very big on leadership stuff, and you have a portion of that in those courses, Some dudes, it's just going to be all on the range. It's going to be all drills and all like, you know, like here's how your eyes work. Here's how the laser works, you know, or your red dot works, you know, like, and it's all that, you know, like with Travis, like you're going to get some ownership, some, you know, come here and let's chat about this kind of stuff. And I like that stuff. I like leadership. I like that kind of stuff is for me. Some people it's not for them, but
after his class, I drove back from Palm Bay, Florida, and it's about a 2.5 hour drive in dead silence, radio off.
Yeah.
With the weight of responsibility on my shoulders of like, frick.
Yeah, you took it in.
I want to own these guns, and I have to know how to, which means like I got to go shoot them and I got to train with them. And like the weight of responsibility was almost overwhelming of like, dude, I need to train more. I have to. Otherwise I should sell them.
Yeah, like, am I ready for this level of responsibility? And I think that training also dispels a lot of myths, like touching on Rogue Methods course, the close contact gunfighter. Like, this is how it's going to be whenever I get into a gunfight. Well, test that.
Yeah.
You know, like, and there's only one way I know to test it, and like, and I've been in his course, and like, and I had some preconceived ideas, and like, man, I'm going to think really long and hard before I let someone get, you know, this close to me. And like, and if, you know, I'm having an odd moment with another human, I'm going to start off by creating space, because I know it takes time for my hand to get from point A to point B. And I also want to buy myself some thought process time of like, what am I really about to do? So there's that. And then like John Dufresne, man, Duffy teaches a weaponized geometry class. And this is his fancy way of saying like one man room stuff, you know, like you're a solo, like you'd call it castle defense or whatever, you know, like the internet wants to call it this week. But like John, it's weaponized geometry, and it's one man and you are opposed, and it's live role players. And like this idea of like what it's going to be like in Costco when the thing happens, like you get some serious interjections there of like, well, that poking around that corner, I didn't really feel so Navy SEAL-ish. I've just got waxed in the shoulder with a sim round. You know, like, so maybe your hero mode changes a little bit, you know, like you have the responsibility piece of like knowing your weapon and how to responsibly own it and operate it. You have the other portions of like, you know, like I think that like if I was in a store and this happened, this is what I would do. Like, well, let's pressure test that, or you know, maybe we can dispense, you know, some of these like common misconceptions of bravado.
It was so weird. The other day I was walking down a sidewalk, and this crazy like homeless guy passed me, and I was carrying, so I'm somewhat comfortable. But he had a 7-foot wizard staff with a big knot on, just like a Gandalf staff, big knot on the end. And
I need a lot of space.
And I started thinking like, how would I handle that? I've never encountered that. Like I know gun, I know knife, and I know physical, but like a 7-foot wizard staff, like what's the protocol here for me to? I mean, it's situational. Like I don't know. I need to train for that.
I don't know, but I'm definitely turning on my peripheral vision real hard as I walk around that dude. Like,
well, even just getting close. I mean, and he was crazy because after he passed me, he stopped and he was watching these eagles fly, and he kept pointing his staff at the eagles, like he was like mind controlling them or whatever. And it was crazy. But I was like, I need to consider that option of what this guy went, you know, full swinging under club style on me. What would I do?
Yeah,
So I don't know. Be proficient is what I would do.
Yeah.
We are over 3 hours, which is crazy. Cause
I knew it would happen.
This seemed to go pretty fast.
I'm a chatty fella.
Yeah.
Just ask me. Was there anything else that you wanted to hit on the list? Like, I don't want to.
No, I mean, some of these were just kind of random. I think we covered some of this about the family training, kids, and how often should you train. The only other thing in here was someone asked, do you train distance shooting with pistols?
Right now, like I would say I stretch out to like 25 yards. That's pretty common like for training, and that's a pretty long shot. I mean, I've seen where dudes will do walkbacks with pistols, and I've seen some dudes make some 100-meter shots with pistols in classes. But it's generally just like a kind of like a bro thing. We'll be training online and doing stuff and hey, let's do a walk back. And then everyone will get online and you'll shoot at 5 and then we'll step back to 10 and shoot and then step back to 15. And I've seen dudes all the way backed out to the 100. And then all right, we'll do it from the draw because they both are just continue to cap it at 100 meters. But I would say I regularly train out to 25. Doesn't mean you couldn't train more. Doesn't mean you couldn't train less. But I kind of 25 is hard. So
we train out to 50. I try to integrate 50 in every training session we're doing.
Because of the walk back with Jared.
Yeah.
Yeah. That SOB. Like that dude.
But because you never know what distance you're going to have to shoot.
Yeah. Well, and you guys, they call it the story, but it's essentially like a walk back, and you hold 0, so you know your bullet drops. You learn a lot about your pistol.
Yeah.
Because they make you learn it. They teach you.
Sure.
They don't just do drills with you. They teach you.
Absolutely.
So we at our annual, what am I going, MTE? What's it called?
Expo.
There's an education day where you can go see a bunch of different people present on a bunch of different subjects. It's kind of a little bit like yours. It's only one day, but you kind of have to make choices on which class you're going to take because there's multiple going on at one time.
Yeah.
But so we have our online video courses for Dent Slayer, and we just finished editing, posting. It's ready to go. Kevin Bird and Dave Shalott, which these two guys are 30-year plus in the business, big in the wholesale part of the business where they deal with dealerships and stuff like that.
Okay.
So they did a class at MTE.
When you say wholesale, just because I want to try and yours, when you guys go and do the hail repairs for the whole dealerships, would that be wholesale or?
Wholesale is more dealing with the used car inventory, okay. or even let's just keep it there. Dealership inventory.
Gotcha.
So in your town, there's probably a Honda dealer and there's probably a dent guy that goes there every week and manages the inventory and makes sure that the dents are taken care of. So that's
wholesale.
Rad.
Yeah.
So there's guys, but in our industry, there's guys that specialize just in that.
Yeah.
And that's really what these two dudes are kind of famous for it. And sometimes it can get a bad name because it's lower prices, but it's volume. I've talked to Kevin the other day, and he's like, yeah, I did 50 cars at Toyota, and I'm going to go do another 40 or something like that at this other place. And I'm like, dude, I don't do that many cars in a month. Because my business is more focused on individual owners.
Retail.
One day that's insane. Anyways, so these guys had a seminar on basically how to get better at that part of the business. And so that is now on our website. It's $49. You'll make that money back pretty fast. So
there's a lot of knowledge there.
Yeah. Both of them are 30 plus years. Go to dentslayer.com, click on video training, and then scroll down till you see the wholesale class and you'll see their faces there. So they're planning on doing 2 more in that series. And so, you'll get that for $49. You'll basically get that access to that class and then the next 2 classes as part of that deal. So,
can we talk about sponsorship real quick?
Sure.
So, we just decided we're going to open it up to sponsorship here, the podcast. And so if you are a business and you're interested in sponsoring our show, please reach out to us. We kind of have little packages set out that we can go into detail with you about what those look like for being a sponsor here. So we've had some other businesses show interest in doing it. They kind of came to us, and so we're like, we should probably open that up as a thing. And so if you are a business Doesn't have to be PDR necessarily. It could be anybody who wants to sponsor us. We obviously love to entertain what that is and talk to you about what that looks like. So, you can email us and we can give you the details on there.
dentslayertraining@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Donnie, how can people get a hold of you? Are you on the social media?
Yes. So lowcountryrangedays.com is the website. And then we have Low Country Range Days on Instagram, all one word. And I respond to direct message on Instagram. We regularly post on Instagram, like, stuff about the instructors, sponsors that have come on board, things about the charity raffle. All the information really trickles out there. There's the lock stock of all the info, of course, is on the website. The pay links are there on the website. Info for camping and a separate pay link for just camping a la carte is on the website. And if you're interested in the VIP day, it's 25 slots, and we only have 20 slots left at this point. But there's when you go to pay, it's on the drop down in there. You can add that in for an extra 100 if you want to come and do that as part of the event.
That seems really cool and like a great deal.
I think it's going to be pretty neat. It was like having industry people come and be a part of the event is a must. But then like my big focus is the training. So like I need to make it, everybody's got to get their value, So I think it was the best win for keeping the thing, and then also providing value for the sponsors, but also the attendees getting it as well.
Yeah, that seemed like a cool thing. I didn't know it was on there. I'll sign up for that. Yeah.
19.
Yeah. And I'm signing up my son. My son is 18, so he's going to be going with me to this. So
I'm stoked about like just how it's we did it last year, and I mean, like, it was very stressful leading up to it, culminating events always are. But, like, to just see how it worked out, like, the people that came, the camaraderie that I saw, like, we went back to the barn Saturday night and decided to do a cookout, and we're going to do the exact same thing again this year. I've got a buddy, Marcus Singletary, and his wife are going to come out. I'm pretty sure they're confirmed to come, but, like, they do some really cool stuff with their company, Cloaked Entry. So there's going to be a little surprise pop-up class on Saturday night to show some people some other neat stuff. Anyhow, just all the quality time that we get together, it was special.
guys, I can attest. I mean, the event is awesome. The amount of work he's put into this thing is highly impressive, from the facilities and the range to the education to, I mean, I think you had 3 meals.
Yeah, so we
3
did
meals, the dinner, lunch, and lunch.
Yep.
Last year, didn't expect any of those. I think I expected the Low Country Boil, but I was blown away. It was next level. And the vendors who showed up, he had vendors there where you could look at different optics or different weapons and different coating systems and different little gear, slings and stuff. They had all these different little vendors out there, and the place, the land is amazing. It's just what you would expect. I mean, you could just see Forrest Gump running down the driveway. That's what it looks like. I mean, it's awesome.
I haven't really said anything about that as far as like it is a drop dead gorgeous piece of property from the Low Country.
Yeah. I thought it was
Moss,
like a
Majestic Oaks.
cartel owned it when I was like, who is this drug lord?
Go to the website, check out the photos, and that's enough said.
Yeah.
Speaking about sponsors, though, you were talking about like Primary's coming back. They're going to be the title sponsor this year, and like last year, we got to see their new pistol red dot before anybody else because they didn't show it until SHOT Show. But everybody at the event got a sneak peek. They got some more stuff that's going to be first time hands on. Will actually be at Low Country again this year.
Awesome.
Barring any production issues, but like their plan is to bring some new breakout stuff again this year.
That's cool. First look gear.
Yeah,
Love
man.
it. Well, If anyone's interested in reaching out to us, they can go to dentslayer.com. They can find me and James there. They can message us. They can see the tools on the back wall. They can see training. They can see the podcast, and they can email us any questions or want to get into sponsors or want to get into low country. Definitely message us, and we would love to be a source for you guys. So we good?
We're good.
We good? All right, Donnie, thank you so much. Truly appreciate you coming. It was awesome. And
Again,
I look
thank you guys
forward
for having me.
to seeing you October.
Yeah, man.
So
It'll be a blast.
Yes, sir. All right.
Good to meet you, Donnie.
Nice meeting you.
Yes, sir.
The Dent Slayer, Matt Boyette. Thank you so much for being here.
She's smooth, boys.